So welcome to part number 1. In this part we take a close look at the Blender interface and how to navigate in the viewport. We won't dive into all the tabs and buttons. This can be very overwhelming, and we just want to focus on the most essential things to learn Blender. So in the end of this part, you know what a vertex, edge, face is, how to extrude your mesh, and how to make a small room. And then we can jump into part 2 and working with materials, UVs and lighting. So let's get started.
So before we start, we have to download Blender. So we go to the Blender website and you have to click this white button, Download Blender 5.0. Here we go. So that brings us to this page. We download Blender again and we'll take a second, and then you have to select the folder, just dropping this in my downloads. And here we go. So Blender is really small. It's around 356 megabyte. What's for 3D software is pretty small. So we're clicking it and we have to start it, clicking next again, and start the installation. So you have to agree on getting a pop-up. I have to click yes. I'm not sure if you can see that. So the installation takes around 1 minute or so. You can drink a cup of coffee, chilling out. And when it's installed, you have a fresh copy of Blender. There's no sort of packs you need to install. It's just what it is. Learn how to support Blender. Well, you can do that just clicking it, so we can continue. And Blender is installed. So I'm going to launch this. Launch Blender 5. Here we go. And it will start. And here we have a fresh installation of Blender. So I'm left clicking on my screen and we can see the cube. So we're good to go. And welcome to part 1, the introduction of the Blender interface. So what I'd like to do is give you a brief introduction on what we see in the interface. And then we take a close look at the cube. Showing all the details, what makes this cube a cube, what is important to know, some important keys, and then we're making a small room by editing the cube. That's all of it in part 1. If you are just starting with Blender, if you have no knowledge, this is an absolutely must watch. If you want to continue, if you have a little bit of knowledge of modeling and texturing and materials, you can go to part 3. That's where the real work starts in the factory. But this is essential when you're a beginner. So this is Blender, and currently we are in the layout mode. And that means that we can have quite a large viewport screen. And on the right, we can see an outliner. So everything we see in the scene, like the cube, or we can just click it, left click, camera and light. Everything in the outliner or in the scene is displayed in the outliner. And we can also see a collection. And a collection is like a box. You can put things in and out, like you put it in and out. And you can also add new collections to organize. So you can imagine when we work on the factory, adding a lot of objects, we get a lot of things in the outliner, and you can control that by adding more collections and organizing it. So that's very important. At the bottom of the outliner, we have the scene properties. So everything that's going around in the scene, you can toggle between all these modes to make changes. And I don't want to go into this right now because that will be a lot of information, because there's a lot of things to explain, and that will be distracting about what I like to tell you. So during the explanation, I will slowly introduce more and more features that are needed to explain. But for now, I just want to focus on the cube and what's important. So the first thing what I like to do is starting to navigate in the viewport. So this large screen we see right here is the Blender viewport, the 3D space. And if we press the scroll wheel like this, we can just turn around the cube. So Blender starts with this default cube. And we're using this one to transform into a small room with windows in a second. But first I just want to just navigate around it so you can see how that works. And this is just pushing the scroll wheel. If you hold shift on your keyboard and do the scroll wheel again, you can just hover around. So that's another way of working in the viewport. And if you scroll like this, you can go close to the cube and away from the cube. All right, so that's like scrolling around. Another very essential thing is the numpad. So if I press 7 like this, I'm on the top view. And if I press 1, I'm in the front view. Pressing 3, I'm on the side view. And you can do but you can do the opposite as well. So if you hit Control 1, you're at the rear, and Control 3 on the right side, and Control 7, you're at the bottom. So this is a way to navigate in Blender, just looking around and using the numpad. So I'm at the bottom and using the numpad to switch between views. And then we also have, if we press 5 on the numpad, you're having the perspective mode. This is a more flat mode, sometimes useful during the modeling process, but we keep in the orthographic mode, or let's say the orthographic. Yeah, the perspective. It's the opposite. We work in the perspective and not in the orthographic. So the cube, we now know how to navigate, but what is this cube exactly? So if we take a close look and we left click on the cube, we're currently in the object mode. And in the object mode, you can do a couple of things. First of all, you can drag your cube by pressing G and just move your cube, and right click, you release that. You can rotate that pressing R, and you can make a rotation movement, or press S to scale your cube and making it bigger. So we zoom out, we scale and left click, and now your cube is much bigger. And if we press N, there is a tab opening, you can see that the size or the dimension is larger. So press Control Z, making it smaller. So by default, it's a 2 by 2 by 2 meters cube. So if we scale this, you can see it's getting bigger, but the scale is also changing. So if you press Control A, rotation and scale, the scaling is back to normal. This is very key when do 3D modeling. If your scaling is wrong, you get all kinds of issues during the process. So bring this back to default because I don't want to do any scaling right now. Just want to show you how this works, the movement. And I want to take a close look at this cube. And as you can see an orange dot. That's the origin. So if we go to, we're closing this right tab by pressing N. Go to the front view by pressing 1 on the keypad. The origin, if we rotate, we press R, you can see that the cube is rotating around its origin. So that's the center of the cube. Another thing, if we rotate and we want to have more control, you can press the Control key. So now it's snapping in the viewport. Very useful when making a movement. And that's pretty much it for what you see in object mode. So it's perfect for scaling, dragging, rotation, but not for making a different shape. And that's what we do in the edit mode. So we press tab and the cube starts to appear orange. And we see now that the cube has dots, and we call these dots vertices. So left click and you can switch between these vertices. And if we had the G key to move, what we did in object mode, we can do that with vertices as well. And now if we just simply release with left mouse click a vertex, you can see that the cube is now having a different shape. Control Z, bringing that back. And we can select more. So I press Shift, left click, and we can now see that we have 2 vertices selected. And now this orange line appears right there. That's because you now have selected 2 vertices, and that makes it an edge line. And if I select 2 more, Shift left click, this orange square appears orange. or the square, and that's the face. So if you select 4 vertices close to each other, you're selecting a face. Blender has different modes. Currently we are in the vertice selection mode, but if you press 2 on your keyboard, you're in the edge selection mode. So let's select left mouse click, shift left click, 2 edge lines, and then we go to the top, pressing 7 on the numpad, S and X. We're scaling this on the X axis and bringing these two a little bit closer. So you can now deform or deform this cube in the edge selection mode. Later on we will do this for a specific task. And now we do Ctrl Z, we go back, and if we press 3, face selection mode, you can now select all kinds of faces, but we're selecting the top and pressing S, you bring these together, and we also have a different shape, all in edit mode. That's pretty much how it works. You can work between vertices, edges, and faces, and in this way you can create like any shape you want in the edit mode. And there's one more thing that I'd like to show you that's useful in the viewport. If we first we go back, Ctrl Z, and we go to the vertice selection mode, we can now see 4, 5, 6, 7 vertices, but we cannot see the vertice on the rear. We are now in the solid view. If we press Z, we can just slide to the left and select wireframe. And now you can see this cube in full space. It's a little bit transparent, and you can see that there is an orange. I like to go back to the solid view, and I want to show you that in the object mode you can do the same. You can go to wireframe, it's now transparent. All right, just some information. We will do this toggling, and it's important you know how that works. So I like to go back to the solid mode. So for now we focus back on the cube, and we're going to change the shape. So we're going to make a small room with some windows that we can use in part 2 to light it and adding some materials. So we will start in the object mode. Let's go to the top view. We press 7 in the numpad. We left click on the cube and press N to open this tab. So we have the dimensions, the X, Y, and Z, and I like to add a new value, making it 5 meters wide, 8 meters tall, and a height of 3 meters, like this. So now we have a rectangle shape, perfect for a room. As you can see, the scaling is now changed and it's not perfectly 1. So Ctrl A and scale, and now it's resetting. So we can now close it, it's perfect. And if we go to the front view, we can see that the origin is in the middle. So if we go to the edit mode, Z, wireframe, and we select everything, we zooming in, we press G, Control, and we move this upwards, it's now standing on the origin. Feels much better, exactly what I want. So now we move to the next part of the modeling, and this will be done in the edit mode. And I will introduce the edge line. And an edge line is very useful if you want to add more vertices, so you can model your shape. So if I press Ctrl R, you can see this yellow line. You can do this with everything selected or everything deselected. Ctrl R, it's more visible. And you have this edge line like this. And if you scroll your mouse wheel, you have 2 of them, or 3 or 4. And I like to keep 2. Left click, you can move them, but we don't want to do that. Just right click and release. And we're going to do exactly the same for the other side. Ctrl R, 1, scroll, you have 2. Perfect. So later we will change these lines in Windows, but I also want to add some lines on this side. So Ctrl R, we're now in the front view, Ctrl R, and add 2, left mouse click, right mouse click to release. And I want to move these 2 from each other a little bit. Press S, Z, Control. We move these a little bit outside of each other. Just like this. This is perfect. Okay, so now the window part. Right here, I kind of like this shape already, so I'm not going to change anything. But at this side, I want to have also sort of window-sized faces. So what I like to do is Alt left click, and you can now select the sort of edge line we created, or Alt left click the other side. And what I like to do is create square-sized windows. And you can do that by changing this line or duplicating it with a short key. And this is Control B, like you select it, Control B, and you can move these outside of each other. And left click, it's done. Okay, this is not how I want you to learn it. Control Z, but that's how you can do that. So Alt left click, you have the other one, Control B, and you can move these outside of each other. So let's say I want to perform this action on both of these lines. Shift, Alt, left click. You now have selected these lines, but what happens is because we are in the vertice selection mode, everything is selected and it's also selecting faces. That's not what we want. Or if I press Control B, it's not acting how I want this. So now we have to switch between the modes. So we're now in vertice selection mode, and I want to go to edge selection mode. So I press 2, Alt, left mouse click, and Shift, Alt, left mouse click. And we have these lines selected. And the great thing about this is Control B, you now can move these separated outside of each other. So if we look at this window, it's almost perfectly squared, so we try to make something the same. We're not focusing on the right measurement. It's just an exercise tool to feel you're comfortable with it. So that's great. And you can see we now have these, if we press 3 on the face selection mode, we have these squares. And these are perfect to act as a window. So what I like to do is Shift, left click, not Shift, left click and Shift left mouse click. And we go to the top view and press E. And now we can extrude these faces like this. We can do exactly the same for the other side. Left click, Shift left click, top view, extrude like this. Not too much, but also not too little. Just something like this. And keep in mind, this is an exercise. It's not about the right measurements. We have the measurements of the room, but for the windows, it's just an exercise. So we click that one, and we can also do this in this view, E, and it's perfectly extruded on an axis, on the, I guess it's the Y axis. Control Z, and extrude, and there you go. It's like this. Right. But yeah, it's a room. And yeah, we have to remove something to have holes in it. So what I like to do at this point is we grab the camera. So here, if we press 0, we're viewing through the camera, and we put this camera inside of a room or even close. So we're putting it right there. We rotate this camera, or we press N and we make this perfectly 90, 0, 0. So now it's perfectly straight. And we go to the front view. We lower this by pressing G and Z. We're moving this camera. And what if we press 0? We're just watching this side of the room. So what I like to do in the face selection mode, if you're in vertice selection mode, you have to press 3 to go to the face selection mode and press Shift, left click. You select all of these and pressing X, and you delete these. Press 0 and you have a view from the room. So currently, if we check this, we're pressing N to just hide that tab. We cannot see the windows on the left and right. So there are two things you can do. You can Shift tilt and you move your camera backwards, something like this. And if we are here, you can see this camera is already out of the room. And it feels a little bit weird to go even more backwards. So what I like to do is change. We go now, first time, to this data tab of the camera, and we can change the focal length. Just so move it a little bit to the left, so we can see everything something between 25, 28, and I like that. So we have a view of the room. We have windows on the left and the right, but they're still closed. So I like to select this object, tap to the object to the edit mode, select the shift left click, we scroll around, shift left click, and we continue doing this. Face. There we go. So that's it. We have a room with window holes. We have 5 windows, and we work between the object and the edit mode. And now we're at this point that we have our camera in position with the object we just created. So I introduced new techniques like adding edge lines and extruding and using a sort of a bevel action to split an edge line. So all new things that are like all new to you, but very important in shaping your object. And one final thing I like to do is organize the outline, because we now have a room and I want to separate the camera and the light from the room in their own collection. So we go to Scene Collection, right click and click New Collection. I'm calling this Scene Objects, like this. We left click on the cube, we drag this to the Scene Objects and calling this Room. And the camera and light is in the collection, so name this camera underscore lights. Perfect. So everything is in position and you can just minimize them and it's organized. And that feels good. We have to keep doing this for everything we're doing. So now we are prepared to go to part 2, where we will take care of the lighting in the scene, and working with some materials. Well, we'll keep it simple. We're not doing anything very advanced, but this way you get comfortable with making a room, adding a material, getting some proper lighting, so we can do the real deal starting in part 3. So these 2 parts are very essential when you start working with Blender. So I hope it's all clear to you. Maybe you have to watch it again, but this is the core of what I want to show you in the first part. The second will be on the same level. We're not doing anything advanced, just to make yourself comfortable. And we keep it low in the learning pace, that we won't dive into the deep. We slowly add new things so you can learn on your own speed. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in part 2. Bye-bye.
And welcome to part 2. In this part, we focus on materials, working with UV maps, and lighting the scene with the Cycles render engine. It's quite a long ride, but after watching this part, you're already working on the factory. So let's get started.
And welcome to part 2 of this course, what is all about working with materials and lighting in the scene. So we have to dive into render engines and materials with textures. So there's quite a lot of things to do, but part 2 is the most essential of this course. If you're able to follow all the things I'm explaining here, you will be able to make the factory as it's displayed in the previews. No matter what, because I'm explaining like all the details, how lighting works, some more advanced modeling techniques to improve the scene. And that's like all the things we need. So let's dive into part 2 and have some fun. So at first, I like to focus on the render tab. Currently, it says Eevee, that's the render engine. A real-time render engine, and it's the default. So as soon as you open Blender, it's right there. If we click it, we have Workbench. Workbench is used when you shape your object and you want to have some soft lighting so you can see your model in a good way without all the textures. That's not really what we want. And we have Cycles. Before I jump into Cycles, we're going to use Cycles. I just want to give a brief explanation about what Eevee is and why it's the default. So if you start Blender and you just want to create a simple scene like this room and you want to have quick light calculations, Eevee is doing a very decent job because it's real time. And well, let's show you how it works. So first we're going to the material preview, and it shows a white room. We left click on the room, we go to the material tab that says round circle or sphere, and it shows material and it's white. So in solid, it's just gray like everything, but materials give you a preview in the viewport without fancy light. It's just very diffused light. You can see some shadows going on. That has to do with the world settings. I'll come there in a second. But it doesn't have anything to do with the light source we have in the scene. I can just move this, nothing happens. So to see what Eevee is doing, and I'm trying to give like a simple explanation without going advanced, we have to go to render. So render is the effect of the light sources in the scene. Light sources are the light, like this lamp, and we have to go to this world, this gray color. So if we move the lamp and we fade away, it's having less impact and it's not so bright. So if we move it closer like this, it has way more impact. So as you can see, it has impact on the light streaks in the room, but there is not really a reflection. So in normal life, when a light source hit the ground, it's bouncing everywhere and it's casting some light on the wall. But it's not happening in the default settings of Eevee. Of course, I will show you that it's just a simple click, like if you enable this tab, ray tracing, what's I think still faking how the light is bouncing. You can see how it looks like. Way more inviting, and we can now see the white color. And if we go to the environment light, it's now light like gray. We make this more white. It looks more inviting how we want that. So you maybe ask yourself, why not using Eevee if it's like so super simple and you can work with it? For small scenes, it's like the way to go. I think I should work with it myself, but as soon we get into bigger scenes like the factory or like large environment scenes, Eevee has challenges. You have to optimize your scene with a lot of baking and hacking, faking. And what I'd like to do in the beginner course is not focusing on how to in a technical way get your scene looking good, but more in how we change the shape and use the lights. That's not how I like to use Eevee for this. Still, it's a very powerful real-time engine, but we're not going to use that. So instead, we're changing this to cycles. And you maybe think, well, if cycles is so powerful, why is there so much noise in the scene? And that's a good question. That has to do with some settings. Eevee is by default doing some denoising, but with some simple tweaks, we can get a crispy, clear image in cycles. The first thing I like to change is the light source. We're not working with a light, it's a lamp. And a lamp, I just want to show you, has, if you just move it away, you can see less impact in the scene. So we remove this and we're clicking on the camera light and add light sunlight. So I like to go to the front view, pressing 1 on my numpad, rotating this like this. And it doesn't matter if it's like so or so, just rotate it. And rotate it is, I'm now in the top view and rotating this in another direction, like so. And we go to the camera, hitting 0, and we render. So maybe rotating, I'm just pressing R and just moving my mouse to have a bit more impact in the scene. And you can see the impact from this window right here, over here, and the other two over here. And these are casting more environmental light. So if we move the sun lamp just away, you can see it's still the same impact, but the lamp was having less impact. So that's a huge difference between sun and lamp source. So clicking on sun, I want to increase the intensity. So currently it's an intensity of 1, and I go for the max, just 10, and that will hit a lot of power into this room. You can see the sunlight is very bright here. We still have a lot of noise, and we're going to fix that in a second. So for now, I'm pretty happy what we have at this point. So I like to go to the render settings, and because we're in the viewport, we're not doing any rendering yet. That's way more powerful, takes more time. You can see the denoise is deactivated. So let's click it, and we can see we now get rid of all the noise in the scene, and it's looking much better. So Cycles is doing a very decent job. I like to go to the solid view or the material view, and because this room is fully white, it's not really inviting. I want to have a color for the floor, for the wall, and for the roof. So we go to the material tab, and currently it's just material. So let's make this wall. So, and it's solid white, and we create another material, and we call this floor, like this. So I want to apply the floor right there, but Blender has no idea how to do that on itself. So you have to do this. So now I have to make some explanation about how to apply a different material on a specific area. And we can do that by going to the edit mode. Currently it's the face selection mode, pressing 1. And I have to select the floor and attach this on the floor. So currently, if I do select, nothing is selected. If I do select on wall, it's selecting the room. So that's why it's full white. So let's change the color of the floor to a more brownish color, something like this. Yeah, you can just copy this code or just doing it yourself. It's not really important what kind of color. I just want to use something else. So we go to the front view, we go to the edit mode, wireframe mode, and I like to select the floor like this. And we click assign. So now these vertices are assigned to the floor. We go back to the camera and hit render, and we can see a brown floor. That's cool. So I want to have a separated material for the roof. And we do exactly the same. You can press A again, deselect, selecting the roof, and assign. So roof and wall still have the same material. I keep roof as white, but for wall, we can just change the color a little bit. Yeah, more yellowish. Okay. So render like this. So we have the roof, the wall, and the floor. And immediately it's changing the mood of the scene. Also because yellow has different reflections on all the other meshes on the room. It's different. So this is just plain colors. And I like to work with textures. And textures are just images projected on the mesh. So therefore, we now have to go to shading. So bang, here we are. So we have a room. We are in the material preview. I don't want to do this in a render. It will slow down everything. Instead, we work in the material preview. That's where it's created for. Shading comes with a lot of extra screens. And to be honest, this screen right here, I never use it. So what you can do in Blender is just hover there. You can see this plus, and then we left click and move this to the left. And then we have more viewport space like this. So we go to the material tab and go to floor, and we can see this node. This is a node, and it depends how this floor looks like. So we have sliders like the metallic. If we just make this fully 1, we have to go to render, and we have to make this 0. It's making it fully transparent. So this is like the core of the material, how it's displayed. And of course, we don't want to have this a metallic floor. We just want to make this 0 and put something in the base color to make it visual. And for this, we need textures. So for this course, you need textures and assets, and you can download these in the lecture downloads as a zip file. So this contains all the files you need. So as soon as you have this zip file, we have to find a location on your PC where you like to work from. Create a folder, for example, factory. And you're putting your zip file right there, and we need to extract this. So we'll take some time, like 20 seconds, depends a little bit on your system, but I'll give you a brief explanation what you get. So you get all the textures, all the models, but also the blueprints and scene files. So you can save your files right there. So it's a total of like these maps. You can delete the factory 4K, and that's pretty much it. So from now on, you're working on this location. Something else, what I like to show you is my Patreon. And you can become a free Patreon member, and you can get some free updates, some little extras, but you also can become a member. So you can become a supporter or creator. If you can become a supporter, you get access to the Discord, and you get the 4K assets back. It doesn't give you access to course content, but it gives you some extras. If we focus on the creator, it includes 4K video and the Creating 3D Environments add-on. And this is something completely new I worked on for so long time. And what it actually is, it's like a mainframe for my courses. So when you install this add-on, you can pick your course you're working from, and you can simply select the pack and download it. You get all the assets. So it contains material presets, includes all the props, and a rubble generator, what has specific rubble for every scene. So you can just simply configure this and add the rubble. It's really cool. We'll give you a preview how that looks. So I'll have to go there to Blender. So when you install this add-on, it looks like this. So we're working from the factory. You need to fetch the factory. You get all the scene files, but you also have this tab. If you want to have 4K video files, you simply click and it will download straight away on your PC. So pretty cool. You have to activate the pack you're working on, and if you do that, you get all the scene files, the presets, props. Pretty cool. Like they're all there. I'm not going into detail. Rubble generator would let you configure all kinds of props or rubble in the scene, and you can simulate this as a rubble pile. And that's like the add-on. So it's new. Maybe there are still some challenges, but yeah, it's right there. So you can find it on my Patreon to become a creator. It's a monthly subscription of $5. And if you stop, you keep the add-on, but there's no more support. So if I add new features, you won't get them. If you want to have lifetime support, you can also get it from the Superhive market. You pay once, then you get lifetime updates. So that's pretty cool. It's very cheap right now because we start with factory, but as soon as I start my snowpack and my environment scenes, my medieval environment scenes get a bit more expensive. And on the page, you can just see how it all works, how you add your presets, the props, how to configure a quick scene. So I'm demonstrating this, like the props and what you can do with it. So it's pretty nice. So that's all I want to do for explain in this lecture. So let's go back to the lecture and continue working on the scene. So we go to Add, Texture, Image Texture, and I want a laminate floor for the floor. So we go to Open, Floor, and we have a texture. So we start with the diffuse. It's just the plain color. And if we go to the material preview, we can see it's reflective. That's because the roughness needs to be back to something like 0.5. So here we have something on the floor, the laminate floor, but not how I want it. I want to have these vertically aligned and much smaller. And for this, we need to change the coordinates. And coordinates are something new. I haven't explained that, so that's what we're going to do. Part 2 is all about materials and lighting, so this is important. UV editing. So let's select the bottom and we go to this tab, UV editing. And now you can see all these vertices are from the mesh, and we only selected the bottom. And by default, it's just sort of unwrapping it on its own way. But because we changed size, this is still from the default cube, we have to bring this back to a normal size. So I like to select everything, Control L, and make a new projection. We're pressing U on the keyboard, and we have all kind of options to make a new UV map. And you maybe wonder, there are so many options. Which one is the best? Well, we can just say which not the best. Project from view is just the viewport we have right now. So it's not the best projection because we have just one side. A sphere projection, it's pretty weird because this is not a sphere, not a cylinder. Cube projection is the one we want to use because it's just projection from all the sides. Then we also have the smart UV or unwrap angle based. These are very powerful as well, but not for the purpose we're working on. So we do the cube projection. And what is important if you do this is that you check if the scaling is still set on 1. If this is not 1, so you press N to open this tab, you have to select your mesh and press Control A and do the scaling. And it's resetting this back to 1. So you now have all these coordinates. You just want to have the floor, and it's still displaying the other coordinates. I don't want to see them. So what you do is click these arrows, and you have your floor selected. So we go to the material preview. We see the floor. We rotate this. In this window, we press R, hit Control, so we snap this. So we now have them vertically aligned, and we press S to scale them. So it depends a little bit on your taste, how big or how small you want to have them. I want something like this. Okay, pretty good, pretty nice. So we go back to the shading because we're not finishing yet. We have more textures. And I can imagine if you're new to Blender, you think, well, we already have something on the floor. Why should we have something else as well? So when we go to rendering like this, and for example, we put this to 0, we have a very reflective floor. If we put this all the way up to 1, it's very diffuse, so it's not causing any reflection. But the floor, like a realistic floor, it depends what kinds of areas are reflective and what are not. And to make that work, we have a specific texture, and that's called the roughness map. It's a black and white map. Black represents reflection, and white does not reflect. So the seams are more white, and the planks are more black. But on the black are even different areas of black and white. So we're selecting this one, and we want to put this into the roughness and change color space. It's a little bit technical, but that's like, what kind of image do you have? Well, this is not a color image, it's just a black and white, so make non-color. And now I can show you the effect of this map. So currently we do not have environment light, so I hope that the sunlight is doing enough. If we just put it out, it's just slightly visible, so we have to add some environment light to demonstrate this in a good way. We'll do this after the projection or the setting of the floor. We duplicate the roughness, and I want to add a normal map. Normal map is like faking because we're not making real planks. The transition between the planks and all the details on the laminate. So it's faking a sort of depth in the plank. So you cannot put a color into the normal map because this is a color output and this is a vector output input. You have to use a transition node, displacement, and normal map. That's it, nothing else. You have to select this purple DX, and we're putting this right there. It's a non-color image, and then you're putting it right there. So in the current setup, it's hard to see the effect, but if I put this like to an extreme value, you can see what it is doing. It's just faking the effect. We just want to have a small value, and as soon we do better lighting in the scene, you will see like the real effect. I was talking about environmental light. It's still using this gray color. So in fact, what it's doing, if you look outside, you have like a plain gray sky, and that's reflecting on our room. That's not realistic. So how can we change that? If we select this yellow dot, we can see a whole list of settings. We're using a sky texture for this part too. In the factory, we'll start working with environment texture. That's like a real photo-based sky dome. But for this tutorial, sky texture is fine. If we do rendering, you can see it's just transformed this. So without, if you just remove this, it's look like this is the default. And if we go to sky texture, it's just bouncing a lot of skylight and an extra sun disk. We don't want that. And still, I don't really like this new sky, procedural sky. Normally, I use the pre-ham. It's a more softened, and it doesn't come with its own built sunlight. And for a tutorial, it's perfect. It's exactly what I need. So we're using this procedural sky and some blue and nice transition to like brownish. All right, and this has a huge impact on the scene. So you can try to rotate your sun lamp a bit more to just find a balance. Not doing that. What I'd like to do is now focusing on the wall texture. So we're selecting the mesh and press A, and you have to double tap, I guess. We go to the material tab, wall, and do the selection. So only the wall is selected. And we go to UV editing. And what I'd like to do is just make it a little bit larger. So, and then we go to shading. And I want to add a texture on the wall. So currently it's just using this yellowish color. We do exactly the same as the floor. Image texture, open. And I want to have this beige wall, the base color. And I want to have the roughness, not the disp, but the roughness. And at the displacement, normal map goes right straight away, and we have to select that one, non-color, and putting it right there. And if we take a look, we can now see a texture of the wall right here. And I was a little bit too fast with scaling the UVs because otherwise it was looking like very small. I want to select the wall. So just to demonstrate, it was very small and I just made it a little bit bigger like this. Okay, cool. Shift, scroll, or go to shading tab so we have way more space. And we hit render and it looks like this. So we have floor material, we have like the plain white material, and that's going very well. So currently the room is a little bit empty. I'm not adding any props, but I'm missing sort of a border for the floor and a border for the windows that makes the room a bit more attractive. So what I will demonstrate is to improve or add some more details. But after we've done that, we also have to fix some textures. I'm doing this on purpose because this is what's happening all the time when you work on texturing and modeling. So what I'd like to start with is adding an edge line. Control R, left click. We're selecting Shift Alt left click. I don't want to go too fast, so you Alt left click, Shift Alt left click. We go to the front view. And what I'd like to do is press SX, and we're moving these to the sides. This will break your floor. That's fine. I'm doing this on purpose. So I also want to have an edge line on the other side. So I'm trying to find my way. You can do this on the bottom as well. You have to feel comfortable with navigating in your viewport. Shift Control R, and we're putting this right there. So we now just want to know if this looks correct. No, I just want to have this be squared. I double tapping GG, and now I can move it. And my screencast is having a break. That's fine. I think when changing tab, it's just taking a nap or something like that. That's all fine. So now we have like this border, but it doesn't really do anything. We just have extra vertices. So I would like to go to the face selection mode, left click, and another sort of short key is holding Control, left click, and you have selected this whole line of faces, doing exactly the same. Control, left click, and Control, left click. And what I'd like to do now is, first I'm doing this the wrong way and then doing it the good way. If we press E, we making the border. But the problem is that it's not merging with the wall. So this is not the way you should do that. Control Z, yeah, okay, you have to check if it's not extruded. I like to do Alt E and extrude manifold. So if you do this like this, just a very small border, don't do it too extreme. It's now merged with the wall. It's looking nice. And I like to add a separated material for the border. And we're keeping it solid white and making a roughness value of 0.1. So it's more like shiny border. In tab or edit mode, you can see it's still selected. And I want to also select the other selection. So shift left click. And now you can press Control left click, Control left click, and here as well. And assign. And if we go to the render tab, render, look at that. We now have a very nice border on our match or in our room. All right, pretty good. I want to do the same for the windows. So currently these are, yeah, we have windows, but I want to add sort of a border in the window. So how we do that is press Ctrl R and adding an edge line for every window. Here and there and right there. We go to the face selection mode, press 3, left click, select one face and Ctrl left click, so you can select multiple at once, and shift left click, Control left click for all the windows. You can't do Control left click right now because everything is selected. Control Z, you repair, shift left click, and then you can do Control. Okay, it's doing that way, shift left click. And for the others as well, shift left click, and that one, we're doing a great job. So, how does the border work? What we will do is do a sort of extrude. If we just do extrude, we're doing it the wrong way, and then we're doing it a good way. It's extruding on a vertical axis the bad way. So that's not how we want to do that. Control Z. Control Z. Okay. What I like to do is doing this so all the windows have exactly the same border. So we press Alt E, extrude faces along normals. And now look at that, looking way better. So you can make it very extreme. I don't want to make it extreme, something like this will do. So these are small. And I like to give these borders the same material as the borders on the ground. So we're selecting these in the side view, in the face selection mode. I like this. And the front view can be a little bit hard to see. But now I've selected everything. Border, assign. We go to the camera view, and we render to check if it's all right. And now you can see the windows have nice looking borders. So the question is, are we finished? Well, not really. I just want to add a bit more advanced lighting, so that will help you when starting on the factory, where we will add separated lights, and it's not totally new to you. In the room, click Scene Objects. I like to add a new cube. Go to the front view. We're going to make that one much smaller. So as Control, we're snapping this to 2 blender grids. In the edit mode, go to vertice selection mode, selecting the right side, G, Control, and snapping it to the right. And the bottom, snapping that one to that. In object mode, you're moving it right to the wall. Like we have to find something, a level that fits. So it's very important that it's just attached right there. Okay. So we click new, a new material, and we call this lamp, like this, and making this reddish color. What do we also add? Light. Okay. And we don't want to use the principled BSDF shader. We delete it, and we go to add, shader, and using an emission. And this shader is casting light on itself if we put this in the surface. So currently it's just using the lamp. So we go to this view, render, just having a red lamp. So from the front view, we go to the wireframe, edit mode. I like to add an edge line, release it, holding G, Control, snapping this to the top, selecting the top, go to light and assign. And now if we hit render again, we have like a little bit of light casting. You can increase it like so. And I like to change a more warm tint. Okay. So you can just move this. We shouldn't do that in the viewport. A little bit more downwards. It's up to you where you like to put your lamp. But what is important, I like to duplicate this lamp, but I just want to have one slider to change all the lights in the scene. So if we do Shift D, we can duplicate an object, but then we have to change each light individual for the intensity. I don't like that. So instead of using Shift D, we're using Alt D. And we're moving this, holding Control, so it's snapping on the blender grids. R, Control, looking like that. We're putting it right there. So you can see this blender grid. So that's like a sort of indication where I want it. Alt D, same here. And Shift, that's not what I want. Alt D, Control, rotate on the wall. So in fact, I now should have more lights and rendering. And now we have nice looking lamps in the scene. I'm missing like a main lamp on the top. So look, I had to name these like lamp. Very important. Now I have to do this all individually so it's a mistake. No, 04. And I have to. So this is proper. So I go to add, mesh, cylinder. There we go. I like to scale this downwards. So something like this. It's a pretty big lamp. We're putting this on the top. In edit mode, we're selecting the bottom. And I want to have two blender grids and putting an edge line in the middle. We're using the same lamp material and the light. And we're selecting the bottom and assign this. So look, if we have this in the middle, yeah, camera view, render. So we have like a lamp at the top. Looks good to me. So we're almost finished with this material light part. There are two things I still like to add to finalize this. One is adding windows. The reason I'm putting this in the end of this lecture is that the default glass window in Blender is not really doing what I want. So I have to do a little bit of math, but you can forget this immediately because I don't want to bore you with that. So, but yeah, just to finalize this part is essential because we have some nice window reflections. So I'm adding a plane. We can now call this window. And putting these as far as you can, like there. So that's good. Making it as Z a little bit smaller, as X, like this. Control A, scale. Go to edit mode, Shift D, Control, and we're rotating it. and putting it to the other side. Just check if it's covering the whole area, and that's exactly what it's doing. Shift D, putting it right there, and Shift D again, and you cannot simply putting it right there. You have to rotate it, otherwise you have flipped normals. And I will show you how that looks. Especially for glass, it's not good. So we have now windows. If we render this, it looks we only have light from the light sources right here and from the exterior because we have a hole inside. So we have to add a window shader like this. We go to delete the principal BSCF and add a shader, a glass. And if you put it in the surface, what I was hoping to expect, and I know it's not happening, that you still have your light source casting light streaks through the windows. You can see a little bit, but it's doing a very poor job. So if we press H, we have the light casting. Alt H, they're back, and it's not. And it's now sort of breaking. So how can we fix this? We have to mix the glass shader, and this is why I still added this in the scene, because we're now going to mix the material, and that's a little bit part of this course. We have to mix this with a transparent shader, and then doing a little bit of math, which you can forget immediately because it's not important to make it work. So we go to add, or we go to first to the material preview or solid, add input, add shader, mix shader, right there. So now you can mix shaders. That's really nice, and a transparent. So we're putting that right there, and we put render again. Yeah, it's like doing it half ways. So 50% reflections and 50% transparency. So I want to do something with a light to have the best of both. So we're adding a light path like this. This is technically, but it contains all the settings of the light in the scene. So I also want to have a math node. You can forget all of this. This is just to fix the windows, and we will not use these type of windows in the course. So the first thing is shadow ray. That one goes on the top, and the other one is reflection ray, that one. And you can put this as a sort of a mask between these two, and now you get the best of both. Right. In fact, we're done because we have the windows, we have the lamps, we get the textures, we're almost all set. But there is one thing, is that we broke the UVs on the floor, because if we take a look, we can see big planks, small planks, and that's because we added these borders. So floor, I just want to select the floor, and we do now from the top a projection from view. UV editing, it's now not good. You can just go to the laminate floor, rotate it and scale it, and now the floor should be back to normal. Maybe a little bit smaller. Okay, that's great. That's super great. Render, exactly how I want it. So be aware that if you add edge lines on a texture, it will break the UVs. Great. So what is left is making a render of the scene, and then finalize this part and jumping to the real work in part number 3. So what I like to do before we go to rendering, I want to minimize the max samples to 1024. And we have a noise threshold. It's currently, well, let's keep it. We just render it. Here we go. So it's currently using the CPU. Yeah, that's much slower than the GPU. So what I like to do is just cancel this and change this to GPU. There we go. We have to wait for when it's finished, and it's really calculating fast But yeah, we have to wait. And this is something specific for cycles that you have render times. Eevee is like straight away, bang, you have your render. Cycles need some calculation. But there are some ways to improve the speed. So we currently are around almost 30 seconds. And then it's doing the denoising. Almost 30 seconds and we have to render. So what I like to do is, we're just closing this render tab, is increasing the noise threshold. So it's spending less attention to trying to fix the noise, what's increasing the render speed a lot. And when we go to the rendering tab, if we look at everything, all the corners are looking so like hard and straight. So there's not realistic reflections going on in this room. Something to take care of. And there is something that works so good to fix this. That's adding a little bit of bevel. So you go to this modify tab. So modifiers are things you can add to improve your scene, your mesh in a very fast way without doing this all by hand. We're adding a bevel. So the default value is like 0.1 meter. That's way too much. I like to decrease it to 0.05, like this, and 0.005. What was it? No, that's too small. Or yeah, I think that's the one I needed. 0.005, very small detail. Object shade smooth. And we go, no, I don't want to do the shade smooth, just using the shade flat and doing a new render. So here we go. And it should render much faster because we're taking less attention on the noise. So it's now rendering in 10 seconds instead of 30 seconds. So the bevel, why was it needed? Look, if you take a look at the borders, they're now casting some little bit of light reflections. And it's the same over here. And these little reflections make it look so much better, that it's more inviting, more realism. And it's just one modifier. All right. So as a little extra to finalize this demo scene, I like to add a sphere. I have to move my recording screen, add mesh UV sphere, making it smaller. You may think, what are you doing? I just want to add a red color, totally red, totally, and reduce the roughness to 0. And duplicate it and moving it to the other side and making this, Control Z. First we have to make this unique and then green. And we go to this, we make it smooth, object shade smooth. And we go for a render. So here we go. You maybe wonder, why are you adding these spheres? Well, it's like to finalize the scene and show the beauty of cycles, how these reflections work and how realistic the light bounces work in the scene, and there are no glitches at all. Cycles is so superior in calculating the light in a realistic way that it's like the engine you want to use for realistic rendering. And these spheres, because they are so bright and colorful, they're casting all the colors and reflections, and a white color is doing that differently. So it's just finalizing the scene. And if you came to this point, you did a really great job, because you're now ready to do the real work for the factory. And all the techniques I introduced by adding the borders, the window borders, but also like adding a modifier and changing like some UVs, all these techniques, I made these mistakes sort of on purpose. So we find our way in the factory to make the scene looks good. So you made it so far, and you're now ready to do the factory work in part number 3. We will make the factory hall, only the modeling, and then we move to the materials and we start adding objects and making a nice looking room. So Thanks for watching this beginner course. And let's move to part number 3. Bye-bye.
Hi there and welcome to part 3. So in this part we will start working with a cube and transforming this in the factory hall. We will also import some blueprints and these will help us finding the right measurements and shaping the hall. So start the engine and let's do some modeling. Bye-bye.
And welcome to part 3 of this factory beginner course. If you made it all to part 1 and 2, you're definitely gonna like this part because we're turning this cube into the factory. Yeah, let's get started. So before we do anything, I like to do a little bit of organization in the outliner because we will add the blueprints and I don't want to put everything together. That will be unorganized and I don't want that. So the collection will be camera, light. So the camera and all the lights will be here. And another one will be building. Yeah. So the cube will be the factory, like this. And let's add another collection and call this blueprints, because I've got blueprints for the factory, but also for the beams and the doors. So yeah, another one, factory, or like this, the hall, because factory can be like anything. All right, so yeah, the first thing we're adding is the top view blueprint. So I'm going to add an image and we will use reference image. All right, so I'm going to my block out blueprints. You can just download these straight away on my Patreon. Yeah, so using the top one, all the scene files are available there. So we're going to measure this cube with the blueprint. So I'm using the real world measurement. If we zoom in, you can see there is like a piece of this hall is 20 meters. So I only need to measure this area so I can just find all the measurements. So we have a length of 20 meters. So we will go to the Y and make this 20. And then we'll make this cube extremely tall. So now I want to select my blueprint, top view. Let's just, this score is not needed. And I like to just scale this one. So it's just covering this part. And you have to do this very carefully, because if you don't measure this well, you will get problems on all places. So this is good. And from this point, we can continue. So we're now in the layout. I like to switch to modeling. And I want to have this origin at the bottom. So I'm selecting this cube. And before I do anything, screencast keys needs to be reset because it has this behavior of taking a nap. And we're moving this on top. So that works a bit better. So going to the top view. And I like to align this shape with the factory. So we go here and here. And now we see a transition. And for every transition, I like to extrude the mesh. So I'm pressing E and we're extruding. And we continue, we extruding this area. And then extruding it all the way to the other side, like this. And we grab these vertices. I'm in the wireframe, so I can do this. Don't be in the solid mode, because that will look weird. We extruding this way. And we selecting these vertices the other way. All right. So far so good, but if we go to the front view, we do not have any measurements. So what I like to do is we're going to add image, reference, front view. So I'm going to, because we now have the shape of this factory, I'm going to align this, and we have to make this opacity a little bit lower. We just have to measure the shape. So this is our shape, and this is like, just need to cover the full space like this. And this is pretty close. At this point, we select the factory, and let's call this front view. And we're extruding this to the first level. Nothing more, nothing less. So what part is next? Well, I like to extrude this area over here because we have this data. So we go into the face selection mode, and it's like this area. So this space in face selection mode. What we can also do is just select this blueprint and moving this and pressing G, Y, and moving this to this area. So something like this. All right. So at this point, in the edit mode, we go to the front view. The only thing we need to do is extrude it, so we cover this area. And that's it. So we now have this space as well. So the next part is a bit more complicated because I want to focus on these windows. Because we have the top and the front, we can model this, but we have to add more edge lines. So we start at this pace, and maybe we have to just use lower opacity for the top view as well. We click on our factory, edit mode, Control R. We're moving this edge line to this area. So it's the intersection between these windows and the roof. And here we have another one like this. Okay, so far so good. And I like to add more edge lines. We have one overlap at this point, and we have an overlap at this area. And I like to add two more over here. Alt left click, G, X. I want to put this one in the middle, and this one is already in the middle. Shift Alt left click. So in the edge mode, not in the vertice mode. We're doing this again in the edge selection mode. So Alt left click, holding Shift, Alt Shift left click, and you have these edge lines selected. And what you do is Control B, and you're moving these like this. So you have you covering this space. That's good. We're not there yet. We have to think if we now have. So what I like to do is making the first extrude these big roofs and then focusing on the windows. So I think we are ready to do that. We can do this only once. We go to face selection mode, shift left click, and we select all of these. All right. And now we extrude this a little bit like so. Okay. And the next thing is to add selection mode, and we select the outer line, shift left click like this. And we're moving this in the front view, G, Z, and moving these upwards like this. And that gives us this classical factory look, exactly where I want to go for. But we also have to make these windows pop out. So we have to add more edge lines. So you can see a transition here. So we add another edge line, so like this, and another one over here. We do it all the way to the left, like so, and one over here. And we're doing this for every window, like so. And we continue. And it starts to look how I want this to be. All right. I just want to focus on what I'm doing. All right, so we cannot simply select these planes in the face selection mode because we want to have these separated windows. So for every line, like here, we have to just add something in between, like so, and Control B, or we just start adding these everywhere, like so, between, and then Shift Alt left click in the edge selection mode and Control B. So they all have the same thickness, and that's better to do. And at this point, we all have separated windows, and we can use these to extrude. So here we go, a lot of selections. Looks like this. We go to the front view, press E, and we extrude this, something like this. And look at that. We now have the windows on top, just perfect. But yeah, we're not there yet because we have many more windows. And let's start to focus on these right here because they are a little bit complex. What I like to do is add another blueprint for the right side. We go to Add, Image, Reference, and the right one. We have to scale it up, making it a little bit more transparent will help us. This one is a bit harder because we will always have a little bit of misaligning. It's really hard to measure, but I think this approach is doing very well. All right, so let's move that one a little bit, GX to the right. So press 3 on the numpad. So click on the factory, and I like to add a new edge line over here, Control R, and one over here. And we go to the top view, pressing 7, another edge line right here. These are the borders. And I want to make these spaces between. So Control R and scroll your mouse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, like this. Yeah, this should be as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And pressing Control B and make them thick. So it's a little bit different than the blueprint, but that's not a problem. So I think we go for this value. All right. So now we can go to the face selection mode and holding Shift left click, and we can select all these windows. And it looks a little bit weird because we have this blueprint we're looking for, and we press E to extrude this. So front view or top view, maybe a little bit more than the blueprint. So we have some extra mesh. Later on, we will transform this mesh in a different, we will remesh it. So we have a different way how the geometry looks. So therefore, you don't want to have small intersections. So you want to have a little bit thickness in it. Thickness is what I was aiming for. Let's continue. We have more windows here on the top, so that's next. So we add an edge line. So, and take your time for this. There's no reason to rush. I mean, this is a beginner's tutorial. I do not expect you know this. So I'm doing a lot of repetition with the edge lines and extruding. And sometimes I'm introducing something new, but most of this is handled in part 1 and part 2. So if you feel not comfortable with it, just go back to these and watch it again. So you can see here is an edge line missing. So we add one over here. And this is not matching, so we add one there. So, right. Doesn't look bad. And we can see we have windows over here as well. So from the front, we're adding more edge lines. Oh, Control Z, that wasn't good. And I prefer Alt left click to have a little bit, have these lines a bit more inwards. than outwards. Otherwise you have very big windows. So at this point we can start extruding more and more. So starting with these, selecting, go to the front view, and you can just use the measurement. You can see it right here. And the roof as well. And this is harder to see. So let's just do it this way in the wireframe mode. And we have to be aware that we also select them on the ground. We want to deselect it. And you also want to deselect the other ones. You only want to select these. So now we're cool. We can now extrude it like so. And to match this, you go to the front view, something like this. Yeah, as you can see, we had to add one more edge line because that's now intersecting. Only this one, so I go back, Control Z, so I have to deselect that one and do it again. All right, it can happen, just fix your mistake if it happens. So now I want to extrude all the other windows, and this is a little bit annoying, so I'm hiding it. You can see these windows, so just selecting and extruding. Just like that, and the other side. Look at that. Okay, and we have them here. We'll just hide that one as well. This is harder, so I want to bring this back. And selecting. Be aware that you're selecting other parts as well if you do this in wireframe. Just press B and use your mouse wheel, scroll wheel to deselect. And you can extrude this. Not too much, not too little. Just this. This is good. And there are a bit more parts. So the yellow are doors. So I like to add an extra edge line, like so. And here as well, like so. And the heat here, because here's a door. We start with extruding. It's hard to see with these. Let's select the factory. And we're selecting these faces. Did we select any other face? No, it's just this. Just be aware. Extrude it. Yeah, a bit more GY. And on the top, we have to add a bit more of these edge lines. We have a door here as well. So we can extrude it like so. And this one. And we have one door left on the other side. Let's go to the side view, and we have to enable it. And with this door, there's a little mistake, it's too wide. So I like to add an extra edge line like this. Go to the face selection mode, or add one extra. Face selection mode, select these. We're ignoring this part. It turns out it was too wide, so I had to fix this. Later on. You can see that we now selected the rear as well. We deselected by B and holding the scroll wheel. And what I like to do is extruding this just like the sample. So this part is missing. And I like to extrude this one more time, like so. And we're selecting these two faces. And we're extruding this. So this is a little extra. And it turned out it worked well for the purpose of this room. We can put some light here, and with the open door it gives a nice effect later on. Okay, I write a side. I have to name this properly. Seed side, like this. Okay, let's hide this. Okay, you can just click on the blueprint, and then they're all gone.
So we have to do some checks. For this, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to the workbench. That will be confusing. Most of it is good. I'm a little bit warned about the top, so I like to go to vertice selection mode and make them a little bit taller. So we have all the windows. It's all looking good to me. If you look at the geometry, it looks like this. And what I like is that it's all looking the same, like all the vertices are connected with the same measurement. Because as soon as we start also adding displacement, it doesn't work with this kind of mesh. So to finalize this mesh, and this is a very important step, we have to add the modifier, just as we did in part number 2. Then we use the bevel. Instead of using a bevel, we're going to do a remesh. And we go to add modifier, generate, remesh. So by default, it's using voxel, and it's not good as well. We're using sharp. It's also not very good. So first, we have to check the scaling. So it's 1, 10, 1, and we press Ctrl A and fix the scaling. It's a bit better, but it has way less vertices than to copy the original. So what I like to do is go to the wireframe so you see what is happening and increasing the depth to 6 and 1 more. Okay, we go to 8, and this looks like we have to check if there's no misalignment. So that's like if we go to, for example, for 7, yeah, you can see that it doesn't have too many vertices or faces to display it correct. We go to 8, it looks good. But sometimes in this mode, you have artifacts. And then you have to change the scaling to make it correct. But we're not applying this yet. We're keeping it like this, like so. So we can, if we find an error in part 4, we can correct this. And then later on, we apply this. So we're still safe. So I'm turning off this wireframe. So because now, if I use tab, I cannot see how it looks. So you have to enable this wireframe to see if the geometry looks right. This is a technique I use for like all my buildings because you can work with displacement. Otherwise, displacement maps are not an option, and you can do such cool things with displacement maps. So I call this done for chapter or part. I'm calling this chapters for part number 3. So we can jump to part number 4. And applying the first materials like the factory wall, the floor, the windows. It takes some time, so we need a full part for this. It won't be advanced materials, just applying them. We need some extra work for the glass, but most of it is aligning the UVs with the texture to match it well. Like that's the biggest challenge. But look at what we have to just disable this. Look at what you created. In part 3, you created a factory hall. And you can do this just to finalize, and then we wrap this part up because I don't want to take this long. We move this camera like so. Let's go to the front view, lower this. We press 0, solid, shift tilt. You move this up and a bit more. I'm pressing Z to lift it up. We go to camera settings, make this 24, like so. Material, yeah, this is all white, but this is the factory hall. And just in one part, in 20 minutes or even less, you were able to create this. And this is maybe the hardest part of everything. So if you've completed this, you've done a great job. And now the real fun starts, because as soon as you start textures and start working with the lighting, it looks better and better and better. I hope you still enjoy this process, and I can't wait to jump to the next part so we can continue on our work. Thanks for watching, and see you in part number 4. Bye-bye. And welcome to part 4. So in this part, we focus on the materials. We have this concrete floor with stripes, for example. but we also have concrete plates. And we want to put these materials all together. That's pretty much it for this part, working with materials in the shader editor. So let's get started. And welcome to part number 4 of the factory course. In the previous part number 3, we created this factory hall. By using some blueprints, we were able to make this factory. And I'm going to close it. In the end, what we did was adding a remeasure. So if we enable the wireframe, you can see there's now this grid. What helps us to displace the materials or the textures that we apply on the floor and the wall if we want. So if we keep this old construction or the geometry, you cannot displace it. So if you do not have any plans displacing your factory hall, it's not needed. But for this course, I like to use displacement maps. And that's also my workflow for all architecture. So we give it a go, and we're going to apply it. There you go. One thing, if you have artifacts, and we have to go back, Control Z, if there's some, like, you can just replicate that, 0.8, or I can do that. Sometimes when you do remesh, things are like merged. You have to check your model if there's nothing merged. You have to just tweak the scaling, just use a slider, and you can fix that. But most of the time, it will be good, but I have to say, it can happen. So apply it. I'm going to disable the wireframe, and we're good to go. So I like to start with materials. So we go inside, and right here we have a lamp, and we're in Eevee. So let's take a look. And it looks nice. So we're not using Eevee, but it gives us slightly sort of preview how the lighting is. And we can see the large hall in the background, this door over here, and the smaller ones. And I mean, it's a nice looking space. It feels large. It's exactly what we want to achieve. And by adding the first set of materials, it will start looking much better. We do some lighting. We replace the lamp with a sunlight and picking a sky, generated a procedural sky. And later on, we will use an HDRI. All right, enough information. We delete the lamp. We go to camera light, add, and we go to light and sunlight. I like to rotate it slightly. Again, this is just preview lighting to have an idea how it looks. And we won't use it after we added the windows, otherwise it looks simply dark. So we'll use the material preview to see what we're doing. Anyway, we're also doing the sky texture, and we use pretam. I explained in part 2 why. But yeah, this is just a preview setup. And I like to increase the strength to 10. So, like this. So, if we go to the camera and we go to render again, we have to go to cycles. It looks dark, and that's fine. So, we have to work in a material preview. Cool. So, what we will do is left click on the factory, the model, right there, and we go to the material tab. And I like to start with 3 materials. The first one is wall. You can call it factory wall, but I mean, there is one main wall, so I'm calling this wall. The next one, click new, is plates. And another one is concrete floor. And plates. So this shows that it's on the floor. I like to start with adding a texture on the wall. So I also want to remove, so I have go to edit mode, we selecting this row, and we delete the faces, not vertices, only the faces. If you do the vertices, it will break it. So faces, so we have an entrance. And the reason I'm doing this is if I want to go backward, I'm doing shift tilt and go back, I can go the other side instead of just bouncing to a wall. And it helps. I also want to change, the focal length is already changed, that's fine. So I want to add, as mentioned, a wall texture. So we go to shading, solid. As soon as you start switching to shading, it will load the textures. It's not optimal. I'm not using these folders, so I'm using this. I'm left click, you see the plus, and it's merging. So, and also not using this grid, so I'm just merging it. So we are in the shader, and I like to add, we want to add a texture, image texture, and we're opening it, and I want my factory wall. Where is my factory? I go to the folder so you can see it. And I want to have plaster wall 04, diffuse. We're putting this in the base, and we're also loading the roughness and the normal map, displacement, normal map. That one goes here, and we're loading the roughness. It's right here. Non-color because it's a black and white image, and it goes here, and the normal map. Cool, fine. So we now have one material, the first one, and that will be applied on everything. So in material preview, it's not visible. And the reason why is that if we select everything, that all the vertices are selected, we go to the UV editing, we do not have coordinates. So in part 2, I explained we have to make a UV map. And what I like to use for this complex or the hull is the cube projection. And you can see like it's insane. A lot of vertices, so this is a map. And I like to scale this a little bit. So we go back to the object mode, press 0 and material preview. And now you can see that the texture is applied, but it's way too big. So you can see this was way smaller when I scanned it. A year ago, I guess, in the factory. So I like to just make it bigger, even bigger than that, something like this. And we can change this, but for now it's good. So the first material is active. So I want to move on, and I want to go to concrete floor. And we go to the shading. And what we can do is simply copy the setup from the wall. Copy. We go to concrete floor and press Ctrl V. And the only thing we need to do is replace these textures. So we go to concrete factory floor stripes, diffuse. And I scanned this one recently. And the great thing about this texture, it has some striping on it. You will see that in a second. Non-color. It's always turning back as soon as you switch the texture. Normal map, non-color, and we're putting it right there. So this should be fine if we put it right there. And I want this material to be applied on the floor. So in edit mode, we just deselect, just clicking somewhere in the space, press B, and we select the floor, like everything. And we click Assign on concrete floor. So place floor is not active yet. So if we go to material preview, you can see what we applied. So it's a concrete floor. I scanned this in a factory, and it has these nice stripings. So there were all shelves standing there. So currently the direction is not good. So I like to go to the top, and so switching to edit mode, and we go to UV editing and click these two arrows. If you do that, you are only selecting these vertices. And we want to rotate this like 90 degrees. So I'm pressing R and Control, and it's rotating. So because I changed tab, the screencast is like disabled. I don't know why. And we go to material preview, and we can see it's now facing the right direction. So It's hard to see where the texture is because it's highlighted, but what I like to do is move this white stripe to the right. So, and make it a little bit smaller. And pressing GX or GY. Yeah, and holding Shift. And I want to have this white line connecting with the end of this wall, because this area to the end will be a different material. So I don't like how it's ending right there, so I'm going to this mode. I have to use my viewport wisely, and I'm pressing GX, and I'm going to put this close to the end, like this. Okay, pressing 0 on the numpad, and we have this view. So far, so good. So I like to move on to plates floor, and we go to the shading and press Ctrl V because we still have it selected or copied. And we go to we have to select it, concrete plates, albedo. I want to align this a little bit better. So zooming in so you can read what it is. And we have to select the roughness. So a lot of texture work, like this. And we want to select the normal map, non-color, right there. Okay, so in the viewport material, the end of this wall and this wall, right here, I want to apply the other material. So what I like to do is, I think it's right there. We're just making a selection and see what we've selected. So I think this was perfect because I selected. It's hard to see in this view because you can't see what a wall is, but I wanted to select this whole area, and it needs to connect with this wall and ending right there. So I just made a random selection and it works. If it doesn't work, you go to the transparent mode, the wireframe. You have to select like one more, or holding scroll wheel to delete one. And again, my screen tab is just not working, I guess. It's not good for you. And we're going to assign this on the plates. And in the UV editing, we are selecting the albedo. We're rotating this. We're scaling it like this. That's perfect. And it needs to cover the whole texture like this. This is good. And then we end up with this. So this is like a driving lane for forklifts. And this area on the right, the shelves will be added on this place. That's why you have these stripes, and that's looking good. So at this point, we have 3 materials applied, and I want to go to the next one, and that is roof plates, because currently we have these plaster texture on the roof, and that's not what I want. So I'm adding a new one, roof plates, or use a capital. Just like this. Perfect. So, and we're going to do shading, Control V. There we have our textures. They're now floating right there. And where they are, concrete roof plates, albedo, perfect. We're just aligning these. As I mentioned, it's a lot of texture work. What I like to do is all in one part. So in the next part, we can focus on the construction beams. That's real fun work. A lot of modeling, by the way. But it will be fun. So this material is prepared, roof plate. So we're doing, in fact, the same as we did with the floor. So we have to find out what the roof is. So that's it. That's the roof. So we're selecting it like this. And here we go, like so, and here, and You can see this line is also selected, so I like to deselect it. And this vertex as well. And this roof needs to be selected also. Cool. So double check, it looks like everything is selected. Okay, but we don't want to select the floor, of course. We have to deselect, so you're going to do B and hit scroll wheel and you can deselect it like this. All right. So if you're sure everything is selected, you click assign, go to the camera view, and you can take a look how that looks. So the roof plates needs to be rotated because they are standing on a pillar later on, and this is not how I want that. So we go to the top view, or we go to UV editing, and we rotate it. So hitting Control, so it's 90 degrees. We go to this mode, and I want to make it a little bit bigger. So that needs to be a little bit smaller, and we can keep changing the size if it's not good. But to me, I think this will work. Okay, you can even make it a little bit bigger. It needs to be like in balance with everything you see. So with imbalance, I mean, if you do it like this, these are really big, but if you make them very large, they look very tiny. So something in between, we go back by hitting Control C, is good. You always need to use your eyes when applying it. So at this moment, we have the roof, the floor, the wall. So I like to go to the next one, and I think it's one of the most key, and that's the window part. So I like to start with adding, there are two types of windows. The painted window, that's a sort of a white old window, and a glass protection window with sort of iron wire. And I like to start with painted window here. And we're going to put this on all of these, except these will be protected window, and the other ones will be, white window. Anyway, I like to start. We go to shading, add, or we can just drag and drop, or just press Ctrl V, and we go back, painted window, and painted window large. It's not calling diffuse, so I have to change that, but it's that one. It's a kind of a weird texture, but it works like a charm. It's really good for this factory. Non-color, roughness, and a normal map. There we go, non-color, and we're putting it right there. So this texture comes with a mask. And we will add this later so I can show you why we need a mask. But first, we need to select all the windows. Okay, so how we do that is exactly the same for all the other ones. First, the top ones, the top windows. Then the windows on the side. Here as well. And these have intersections. So what we'll do, we select it like this. And then we have to deselect this. Okay. That's how we select the windows. And we have some on the other end here. Let's take a look. And we have these roofs. Almost forgot. And check if nothing else is selected. We zoom in, we look around, and only these windows are selected. Looks good to me. And we click assign. But this time we need to do some editing. So if we do the material previews, you can see it looks kind of weird. So UV editing, and I have to go to my window. I just call window large, that one. Yeah. And what I like to do, and it's a little bit intensive, but you select the UVs and just checking it. It's a little bit slow. Of course, we are in the viewport. And we're scaling this, but I want to overlap it a little bit with the border. And this way, it blends better with the plaster. So I tried a lot of versions. And for the factory, this is really the way to go. So this will take like a couple of minutes. So just relax and take your time. I've done this over and over again, like 8 times or so. And that's good. Modeling takes time, and texturing as well. So these are like the small ones. You won't see the button, so I'm just simply skipping that. So we're rotating that one and try to cover as many windows as possible. And again, there's no, and these needs to cover the bottom as well. That's important. All right. So what we can do is just simple rotate all in one. So that speeds up, and try to already find the right measurement so that will save us some time. Okay. Cool. And we're almost there. We're almost there. And we have to make this one, this material needs to be kind of transparent. And we're doing this with a black and white mask. And yeah. So the great thing about what I like about a course like this is that I cover like the whole process. I won't skip anything. So you get the whole idea of modeling. And I was used to make like large courses with all kind of scenes, but this time it's just separated areas. And I kind of like this way because I can focus way more on it. Anyway, a lot of talking, material, and now looks this. And by the way, this is how it looks in real life, like this kind of window. We go to shading. Let's say if you go right here, you go to rendering, it looks all black. So at this point, we have to do the masking. So simply duplicate, we go to solid view, a texture, and I want to have this mask, make it non-color. And the only thing you need to do is putting this in the alpha. And we're doing the rendering again. And you can see something is happening, but there is a problem. We need to invert it because now the wrong part is casting light. So what we will do is we go to add color, let add color, invert color, and putting it right there. And now if we hit render, there's much more light casting through the window. It's still very dark in this scene. That's because the main windows do not cast any light. We will do this right now. But I mean, these are working. And you can see the squares, the bottom isn't visible, but it's like the plaster is hiding it. All right, so what's left is one more material. We click plus, new, protected glass. And you maybe wonder, what is protected glass? It's just this typical type of glass with a wire in it, so it can't be broken easily. So what I like to do is I'm selecting all of these. This is the easy part. But I also need to select these, and it's really hard because it's very hard to see where they start and where they end. So what I like to do, and that's nice, we turn cycles into workbench. You go to matcap, you click on this sphere, you make this red. So if we now go to render, it still doesn't work. But if we do the outline, that doesn't work. Shadowing, a little bit of cavity. Cavity is doing the job. So now, and we're in the face selection mode, we can select the top way better. And this, I normally do a lot of work in the workbench. You can do the whole modeling part of the factory in the workbench. But it works in Eevee as well. So sometimes I think, why is there a whole separated engine just for this kind of work? But if as soon as I work like in the workbench, I really like it. So it's a bit double. But then I think, yeah, people need to work on it, make it stable. So what's the benefit? For me, it's really this type of work. But yeah, long story short, it works. It has a function. So there we go. And then there's one more row left. And sometimes it's modeling and texturing and applying textures is this kind of work. There's no sort of easy way of selecting them. It's really, you have to manually select them and apply them. The good part is that it's a titleable texture. So as soon we go back now to, you have to go to solid, otherwise it will load. You go to cycles, and we have to be aware that everything is selected like this. Looks good. And protected glass, and yeah, you can assign, but there's nothing there yet. So let's assign it. And now we go to add texture, or we can Control V. Yeah. But for this texture, I don't want to use the principal BSDF. However, what I like to use is shader, a gloss shader, because this is such a nice texture. I scanned the normal map, so I'm going to show you that in a second. So we have to go to protected gloss, and this is it. So let's start with the albedo PNG. You can do JPEG as well. And we want the roughness, not color. Go straight into the roughness and the normal map. Cool. Non-color. We're putting it right there. And I showed this in part 2 as well, that just the gloss doesn't cost the sun streaks. So first we render. You can see, we zoom in, this is the protected glass, it's way too big. So we have it selected. You go to UV, let's just rotate it. Is that wisely? No, it's not wise to do that. We're just scaling it. And material preview, so you can see it. Something like this. It's still way too big, but maybe a bit more. I kind of like to see the effect, but it's real, and the normal map is really working here. So that's nice. So let's go to rendering. Here, and you can see it's a sort of breaking the light, so you can see the factory roof, but it's like blurry. That's nice. But the big thing is that it's not casting light. So we have to go to shading, add, go to shader, mix shader, putting it right there, and add a new shader, add to shader and transparent. Yeah, we've done this before. Transparent, there you go inside of that one. And if you do the rendering right now, you can see we have light streaks. But there are some artifacts going on because you're now using a 50% of the gloss and 50% of the transparent. And I learned something, and it's math, so I can say forget this, just try to copy this, because gloss is not doing what we want, but with this calculation, you can make it work in the best way we can do that. So what we want is light path, like this, a math node, and change this to maximum. And then we want to have the shadow ray and the reflective ray. And this works as a mask to have the best of both. And we're rendering, and the transition is now better. It's a small detail, but a 50% doesn't simply work out. All right, so I like to do a little bit of tuning with the sunlight, maybe a little bit more like this, rendering. We already have a value of 10. What we can do is, we have the environment light. We can use a denoiser, make it more cleanish. And something I like is a little bit of increase of the exposure. Let's use base contrast. I don't want to go into this too much because it has to do with color management, but if you increase it a little bit, you can see more. So at this point, we have basic materials. That's a great thing. We have the plates, we have the striped concrete, the windows on the roof and on the rear. So what I like to do in the next part is focusing on the construction beams. We have iron beams and concrete beams. There are quite a lot of them, and we need them to fill this room with the construction. A factory hall without construction beams is kind of boring. So that will be, it will be pretty tough, but with everything you learned so far, especially in the first two parts, you can do this, because I won't show you anything new what scares you. So you will able to do that. But, I mean, you need motivation and concentration to do that. But I will help you, and together we will fix this. I promise. All right, so this is the end of part number 4. Thanks for watching, and I'd like to see you in part number 5. Bye-bye. Beam measurements. You can find all these images on my Patreon as a pack. It's all free available. You don't need to pay anything. It's just there. Free subscription. So we have this image. I'm scaling this a little bit. And I want to measure this. So I'm adding a cube. Let's click beam construction. And this will just be a measurement object. So I'm just dragging this. I'm not snapping. I'm just trying to measure it. We go to item, and we want to have 11 meters. So we now have to align this image. And we go to the settings, making the opacity, lower it a little bit, like this. We go to wireframe, and I have to enable my screencast again. It's the most stable plugin I've ever worked with. But at least it's doing something. And I'm going to align the ends. So this is the cube. And you can see it's now right there. So at this point, we still work with Blender grids when modeling the main parts. But as soon we have the measurement, we scale this down, and we're going to align this with the blueprint. So then we skip the Blender grids. That's totally fine. Don't need to panic. But for the main parts, we use the measurements. Otherwise, we have very weird parts that doesn't fit. So I like to just delete this measurement cube, because this beam represent the size. And I like to just select the beam construction again, add mesh cube. So what we're going to do is just drag this cube right here, so we can have some spacing. And I like to let's import another more perspective image from the beam, like this one. And this is just as a reference, so we can take a closer look what kind of parts we have. So I like to start with this part, the construction beam, that we can put on the top and at the bottom. And we need it for some other parts in the factory. So we also have to make a duplication that we can use again. And as soon as we make this part, we have to add a texture. So we're starting to duplicate, and we don't have to map it for every single part. We just have to slide the UVs a little bit to make it more unique. So it's a lot of information. So let's get started with the beam. So I added this cube, and what I like to do, currently it's using 2 Blender grids. And I want to see the origin, and because we are in the shading mode, we won't see that. I don't know why they skip that in these modes. So we go to the modeling tab, and we go to the camera. We don't want that. We go back to the cube, and we can see the origin. So what I like to do is switch to the edit mode, wireframe, go to the vertice selection mode by pressing 1, and we're pressing G and Control, and we're dragging this. So the origin is at the bottom. So far, so good. At this point, I'd like to add a modifier, a mirror. And the reason is that everything I'm going to do on the top will be done on the bottom. And this way it speeds up the modeling. So currently this beam or this cube has 2 blender grids. So I'm selecting the top, pressing G, Control, and I'm scaling this up 4, like this. And one more, I want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we add another edge line, like this, and we're moving this on top. So what I did was, I added a cube, and I extruded it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and because we already had 2 blender grids, we now have 7. So I added this edge line, so we can now also, by the way, we have to switch to Z, and it's happening there as well. And I like to extrude this to the right with 6 blender grids. Extrude. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Like this. And we have to do the same for the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we have like the core of the beam. What we could have done is also use a mirror modifier for the other side, but this works pretty good. So as soon as we're finished, I like to apply. Yeah. And I want to check if there are doubles at this point. By distance, there are no doubles. Sometimes if you use a mirror modifier, what I did was I selected it and pressed X and face, and there was a face in the middle, but no doubles, and I removed it. So that's what I did. So we go to the top, we're rotating this beam. We go to the front view, and I like to scale this down. So at this point, we're just ignoring the blender grids. I like to align this with the construction beam right here or here. So we have something like this. We go to the edit mode, and let's move this to the middle and SX, like so. We can do this in multiple ways. I feel like this is one of the best. So if we just scroll around, we can see we have this construction beam, and I don't like this blueprint to be inside. It's a little bit distracting. So we have this construction beam, and there is no more modifier applied. And at this point, I like to add a texture, because if I just continue with modeling without adding the texture, I have to do this for all the parts, and that's a lot of extra work. So I create a new material and beam metal like this. Oh, that's not good. Perfect. So we go to the shading, add texture, image texture, and I like to go to my texture folder and blue metal plate. The original color was blue, and for this I like to use this orange, so I just make multiple colors. We're putting it right there, and I will give a little bit of explanation about what we're going to do with the texture. The roughness, non-color, and Shift V, add displacement normal map, putting it right there, and this normal. I'm using this texture a lot, like this. So let's take a look. So maybe we have to go to the UV editing, metal, so we can see it. So the great thing about this texture is that it has a lot of scratches and damage. So by adding the beams on this texture, we already have like a natural look. So we don't have to do a lot of post-processing and blending. It's just adding this. We're going to unwrap it, and then we're like pretty much done. So we have this beam, and yeah, let's start with the UV mapping, and then we make a duplication. So we select, let's add some edge line, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we select everything, pressing U, cube projection, or we have to check if the scaling is not right. Control A, rotation and scale, and we do the cube projection again, and that helps a lot. This is why you always need to do this scaling. We select the UV and we rotate this. We start to scale it and align this with this line. So I like to hide this factory. I'm pressing H. So it's still there if I press all the H's back, but if I go to the material preview, it's loading all the textures from the factory. I don't want that. So we do the material preview and it looks like this. I have to remove my tab. And from a distance, it looks really cool. So because we now have one beam, we're duplicating it and putting it right there. So we have this backup. So we can merge this later on, and we always have one extra. That's very important. So I like to duplicate this beam and holding Control, snapping this. And now we're moving this a little bit downwards. Yeah, it's still in the same line. So we now have these two beams, and my screencast is taking a break again. So there we have it. And we are in UV editing. And I like to continue with another part. So I like to go back to modeling. And we're going to add a new cube. So I like to select this, and we have to call this beam. Otherwise, we get a lot of beams. So naming is very key. So we need to be in the beam construction, and we go to add, mesh, and cube, and we're dragging this cube right here. So Control Z, pressing G, Control, and we're snapping on the blender grids. So moving it a little bit downwards. And the part I like to make is this shaped construction beam. It's a small part, and we have to make it look like this with some reinforcements in the middle to make it strong. And then we have to align this on the beam. It's quite a complex construction, but as soon as we're finished, it's really working well out. So we're going to extrude this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an edge line, and we're putting this right there. So we want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these blender grids at the bottom, and extrude this one 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have this shape. So what I like to do now is we're going to the top view, we rotate it, we go to the side view and rotate it again like this. We go to the front view and we're going to scale it down. We're moving it upwards like this, make it smaller. And you can see what we're going to make. It looks a little bit like this. Scale it. So we're aligning this. So we forget about the blender grids. It's not important at this point. We're going to scale this as X. So we're trying to align this like this. Okay. At this point, Control A, rotation is a scale, or rotation and scale, doesn't really matter. And I like to add this reinforcement. So Control R, 2, 3, S, and bring them a little bit together. This, what you see in the background, is just a reference. I want to be these exactly in the middle, like this. And I kind of like it. So we're going to select these, Alt, left click, Shift, Alt, left click, and Shift, Alt, left click. We press Control B. So we have this. So not too wide, something like this will do. That's pretty cool. And we go to the face selection mode. And Shift left click, Shift left click. And at this point, I like to extrude these. That will look a little bit weird, but we will get there. We extrude it like this. And I want to bring these now more together. But if we do this, that looks weird. So if you go here on the top and you go to individual origins, you can scale these together like this. That's what I want to do. All right, so same for this bar. I like to use the beam metal, and we're going to do the scaling again just to check. And we add the texture, cube projection, and we have to switch back to UV editing and check our UVs. We rotate it, like this, and just use the other side, like so. And the first part is ready. So what we will do is we keep this part right here. We Shift D, duplicate it, bring it right here. I like to start with the large one on top. So the large one will be these two. We have a smaller and this vertical one, that's the bottom. So we have to make 3 versions, pretty easy. As soon as this one is ready, we can just hop to the next one. So I like to go to the side view, press point on the numpad, and we have this selected in the middle. And I just want to move this to the left, GY, and we duplicate it, Shift D, and we rotate it like this, holding Control. And I want 2 blender grids between this, like this. So we go to the front view, and the first part is like ready. What I like to do is just move these on the y-axis, so we have different like textures on it, UV mapping, and we have a double, so we can join these. Shift left click, Control J. So if you do Control J, you have like one single object, and we have the right scaling. So press Shift D, and we lower it like this. And I like to align it, so we're moving these like this, and we select all of it. I like to select these endpoints in SY. So and we're going to move them slightly down. So again, we have a little bit of different textures, but you can see some repetition. So feel free to just move this to the other side like this. Well, that's good. All right. I like to duplicate it another time for the smallest one. We move this together like so. Just perfect. Okay, so we now have 3 parts. I like to select these and do the same as Y, a little bit close together. How does it look like? Something is going weird, so we have to do the cube projection again. That's kind of weird, so let's select 1, U, cube projection. Sometimes you have to check your UVs. Well, that's fine. That one is kind of weird. It's just mapping a double. So we have to just align that. No problem for it. It's kind of double. What's happening? Why it's not changing? Okay. For this part, holding Control and rotate it like this. And align this with the part. I like to go to the side view and align it a little bit better with the main beam, like this. And then we go to part number B, Shift D, and rotate it so it's fitting, like so. Go to the side view, align that as well. Very important. And the tallest one, Shift D. And bring that in position. Side view and GY. Okay, so front view. I like to duplicate this part. It's exactly the same, so I also want to just move the UVs, otherwise you see repetition. And because, we have to duplicate that one as well. It's just the same. And another time. Okay. So we now have this, and the other side is like exactly the same, so we can just, we have to make these smaller ones, and then when you make a big duplication. So as you can see, we have single ones here. So we duplicate that one, align this. We're going to stretch these a bit more in the edit mode. Don't do this in the object because that will stretch the middle reinforcement. So just do the cube projection again. Here we go. And bring that in position. Okay. So Shift D and rotate like this and align it. Okay, go to the side view, align it with this point, and Shift D, rotate, Alt Control, yes, and slide the UVs, GY, okay. So we have something like this. So far, so good. So you can see there are some plates between. We have to model these. Add mesh cube. So where's the cube? It's right there. So I made some samples, but I mean, it's just a matter of making these smaller, like so. And SX. And try to align that. Okay. We go to the side view and we make it smaller so it's fitting between these two as Y. Okay, you want to have just a little bit of spacing, not that they are merging. Control A, rotation and scale, and Shift left click, Control L, and link material. So it's now sharing the same material without just selecting it in this panel. So it's a sort of a short key. And do the cube projection. And you can just use something here. I like to have the border on top. How does it look like? That's fine. So we have multiple ones. Doing the shading, the solid mode. Shift D. Here we go. They all have a little bit of different shape. Okay. Shift D. So as I mentioned before, this part is all about the modeling. It's the most intensive one. We have to, by the way, change the UVs for every part. We don't want to have any repetition. Repeating part. But I think it's valuable to have a part that is more complex than just doing rough shapes or simple shapes. Shift D. This one is different than the others. Like so. Just aligning it. Nothing fancy. And you can use these like templates if you want. So I have this, adding an edge line and bringing these down together. Like so. And a cube projection. Always a new projection to just match it. So we have most of them. And there's two more. One over here. And the large one. Like this. Okay. And do the cube projection. Like so. Cool. A little taller. And at this point, what we will do, we're going to copy like everything. So just deselect the background. We want to select these and that one and this part. Okay, we go to the top view and Shift D and we rotate. Oh no, you have to go to bounding box center and then we can rotate that and move this inside like this and move this to the right. Here we go. Okay, so there's a little bit of aligning issues. This is perfect. Only this part is a little bit different, so we're just moving it. And this one is smaller. Here we go. Like so. Ooh. Great. And if we go to the material editor, it looks like a construction beam. Because we made this duplication, I want to move all the parts a little bit so they look unique, a bit more unique. Because we're going to duplicate this beam 4 times. And it's pretty odd if you see like a repetition. For the beam as well, maybe just a whole other area for the beam, like this. And these. And for the plates as well. I just want to check if we have original objects. All right. And these, some are not selected. All right. We're almost there. There are some parts you cannot really see, but at this perspective, you can see there are some plates on the ends, sort of end caps. So I like to model these as well. Add mesh. It's very simple, but they need to be added. Just bring them over here. And you can see it right here, smaller. This is sort of guerrilla modeling. And I like to put this on the end. Like so. Go to the side view. And we're aligning this part with the beam. So, and it looks like this. So we have to bring this area all a bit more inside, like so. So we're aligning this. Control A, rotation and scale. We're using the same material, Control L, link material. And do the mapping U cube projection. We have one, another one here at the bottom, like so. And now you can see the origin is floating. You press spacebar, origin to geometry, and it's exactly in the middle. And I like to just adjust this beam a little bit. So, cube projection. Oh, select this part. Rotation and scale. It's just a lot of space for a small part. And then we can duplicate these and bring them to the other side. And then we have it fixed. So, this is the beam. I like to hide this one. And we make a duplication. So we have a backup. Shift D, like so. It's always good to have something. If something breaks, if something doesn't work out and you can see it, you have something there. So at this point, you can select everything and Control J. Just check, there's no modifier applied, no mirror. You have to be sure that looks all good. Control A, rotation and scale, and origin to geometry. Yeah, so this one is exactly in the middle. Fine. And we have this beam over here. So what I like to do is we're going to add these beams in the factory. So pressing Alt-H, we have a factory back. And we start with this beam, and then we align the other construction. So let's go to the workbench and go to the render mode. And we're just dragging this one to this area, rotating it. We're not scaling it. I'm going to align this. It's very hard to see, so it's inside. So let's put this outside for a second. Yeah, exactly. So you don't want to interfere with the window. So that's why I need this reference. And I like to use a mirror. So we extend it, a mirror modifier. Go to the side view. GX, GY. And we have to do the clipping to merge these, GY. Yeah. So we have this beam. It's a little bit too, well, it's maybe just good. Okay, and then I want to scale it a little bit down as Y. Like this. And it's not a big deal if it pops out a little bit, but just a little bit. GY. And bring this in position. Control A, rotation and scale. Oh, Control Z. You have to apply the mirror first. Apply, and then we can do the rotation and scale. Okay. At this point, we're lowering this beam. So align this with the roof. Okay. And yeah, we're duplicating it, Shift D, to the other side. You can see this line is right here of the window. Another time, so we have a beam right here. You can take this window as a reference, let's say the corner of the window, and another duplication. So same for this point. We're using this window as a reference. Okay, from the inside, we can now see we have these beams, and you don't want them to interfere with the window, and that's not happening, so we're good. And this is in the workbench. So what I'd like to do is go back to cycles, material preview. Yeah. And just check the face orientation. Okay. And now I like to start adding these construction beams in the factory. So I can see that I almost blend everything except these two caps on the end. So we have to join these and change the name. Construction beam. Yeah, it's a lot of parts we do some cleanup later on. We bring this part inside of the factory, like this. So, we have to align this. So, bring this up. Let's go back to the workbench. Render. And you can see the origin, because we joined these caps, are there. So we do this. We're scaling it a little bit. Scale it a little bit down. Then we're moving this so it's hitting the other beam, but not inside, just slightly like this. And it looks good to me. So I want to have these beam in the middle between everything. So between this, Shift D, between these two windows, and Shift D again, and Shift D. So we have these beams at all parts. And it looks like this. So it's not finished yet. There's one more thing I like to do. Is we had this beam as backup, and we used it without making a new duplication. So I like to just use this tall beam, Shift D, and we remove half of it, vertices. We rotate it, and we rotate it again. And then we align it with this side. So we can just remove this part as well. Let's align this with, okay. And we put the origin back in the middle. And we want to have this beam as a sort of, it holds the other beams. So it's the construction of the factory. So inside it looks like this. Shift D, GY. And another time, the final one. Okay. Currently we are in the workbench. We go back to cycles, and I want to see how that looks in render mode. So there we have it. We have the construction beams. That was a lot of modeling, but it was definitely worth it. We still need some extra beams on the top, but therefore we also need the concrete pillars. That's quite a lot of work. So we combine that all in part 6. But the most complex modeling part is finished now, as the construction beams with all the tiny parts. That's done. That's a lot of work. And from this point, it's just modeling more objects, putting them in the right position, and finalize this. So it was a long ride. It was pretty tough. If you're still there, you did a great job. And imagine how beautiful this factory will be if we complete it with all the other parts. So thanks for watching, and I'd like to see you in the next one. Bye-bye. And welcome to part 6. So behind me, you can see a concrete pillar. And we're going to model these. We model them, we're adding a texture, we're doing UV unwrapping, and we're putting these pillars in the scene. So the pillars do not only work as a construction function, they also add some depth in the scene because we have multiple pillars in the scene. So that's pretty much it for this part, and let's do some modeling. Bye-bye. And welcome to part 6 of the factory creation. In the previous part, we created these metal construction beams. It was a bit more advanced modeling, and I hope you enjoyed it. We will do more modeling, working on the doors, but it won't be as complex as these beams. So, but yeah, I had to add something like this because this is all part of environment modeling, and sometimes you have to challenge yourself a little bit so you know what environment modeling is. Anyway, we have these metal beams, and I like to do some organization and cleanup so we can continue. We have some blueprints we're not using anymore, some parts that are not needed, so we delete it. So let's select it, and we press delete. Then we have this extra construction beams. It's nice to have, but the only thing I really need is this big one, this big beam. So let's delete all the parts except the top one. And then we create a new collection and calling this metal beams. We're selecting all of it and putting it right there. And we create a new collection and call this concrete beams, because that's what we're going to do in this part. Let's go to the viewport, and we're in the UV editing. Let's go to modeling, press 0. So that's much better. So let's select the camera. So, whoops, camera. I like to change the perspective, the focal length to 22. Yeah. And we're shift tilt a little bit more backwards. So we have more space, more viewport, because we work with the pillars. And and I need I need more space in the scene. So what is the plan? I'm going to add annotation. We go to View, and then Annotation, New, Selected. So we're going to make these, these construction beams. Don't judge my painting skills. I'm going to go to make these pillars here. We're going to make some over here as well. Pillar. Oh, that's bad. So pillar. But also a pillar over here. In the corner. You get the point. So, and these pillars are really essential for this factory. I'm going to remove the annotations. It will create depth and give some more body on the scene. So yeah, I'm selecting this square, so the annotation is gone. You should not do that. It's just my explanation. I would like to switch back to the workbench, and we're going to the concrete beams and add a cube. Go to render mode, and I'd like to put this cube between these two windows, make it smaller and a little bit rectangle shape. Not too much, just a little bit, and putting it right there. Okay, so we go to the camera view, and we're just press G and Z, and then as Z, we're scaling this, and we're dragging this, and I can see that the screencast is snapping again. So as Z, you can just scale any viewport. Don't do this. Or we have to do that, but just want to show. So we have a pillar, and it's in the right position, but it feels a little bit too thick. So it can help your scene, but it can also break your scene in the viewport if you have something very large and close to the camera. I want to divide this large room into like multiple parts, and these pillars are essential. So, but yeah, it's too thick, so I like to scale it a little bit as Z. And this feels like a little bit more, feels better. Control A, rotation and scale. So this is what we have. Call this concrete pillar. Exactly what we need. And we can delete the top face and the bottom face. And the reason is I want to go to the vertice selection mode. Pressing 1 is Control L, select it. Is I want to add a bevel on the sides. So you press Control B and move your mouse and scroll your wheel. 1, 2, and 3. Something like this. Don't do it over well. It will be a round pillar. Something like this. Feels good. All right, so play with it. If it's hard for you to find the balance, just play with the bevel. You will be all right. So because I like to use a displacement map on these pillars as well, the geometry should be right. So I like to add 2 edge lines right here, 1 over here, 1 there, and 2 here. And then we're going to add them horizontally. And I want to have square-sized faces. So I'm just adding more and more. Something like this. I'm not counting them, but this will be fine. So what about the scaling is right. Go to Object and Shade Smooth your pillar. And I like to add a texture. So from this point, we go to Solid View and then turning back to Cycles. Okay. So we go to Material, New Concrete Pillar. And we go to the Shading tab. Go to the Viewport. And we add a texture. Image texture. And yeah, I had to put this just in plain concrete pillars, but it has a conversion to 4K. That's why the naming is weird. It's called CPP. That's called Concrete Pillar Paint. I went to a factory with multiple pillars, and some were rough concrete. And this was painted. And they both had like a very unique look. So I scanned both of them. I think one of them is on, yeah, these are on Polyhaven for sure. And for the factory, it's just a lovely texture. But CPP is not a good naming. I think it's not CPP on Polyhaven, so don't look for that. And put a normal right there. Okay, it's still called roughness, so we have to select the normal, and later on we do the displacement. All right, so we look at that material, it looks weird. So how do we add a texture on a pillar? Different than the construction beam and the factory. This time I like to select everything and pressing U. And instead of using the cube projection, I'm using a cylindrical projection. So it's fitting it perfect on this without having stretched elements. As Y, something like this. I want to check how that looks. Oh, go to the material. Screencast. I think I'm pretty sure if I switch tab, screencast is dying. Not good. So we have a pillar and it has the right thickness. So what I like to do is aligning them in the room. We have to do a little bit of cheating because this line is not really intersecting with this line. It's same for the left. What will be good? So what we will do is we're moving this pillar a little bit to the right, and it can overlap a little bit because we will also add a construction beam horizontally. All right, so we have one pillar. We duplicate it and putting it right here. Yeah, not between them, something there, because I also want to have a pillar at this point. So that looks like this. Yeah, that's okay. Don't worry, I like symmetry as well. But for the pillars, we use it a little bit different. Same here. It's not there's not a lot of symmetry right there. Like so. That's good. Shift D. And what I have to do is changing the UVs each time I duplicate. Or you simply rotate it 180 degrees. I want to have a pillar on the other side over here. And just move the UVs. That's more than enough. And what I like to do now is we're duplicating the pillar. We're rotating this. Oh, go to the vertice selection mode. And we're stretching this one. It's kind of weird because we now have a lot of stretched vertices. But for the large ones, it's all right. This one will have displacement, but it's not close to the camera. So I don't bother. I like to scale it in the Control A, rotation and scale, and put the origin back in the pillar and scale it a little bit so it's overlapping and bring this down. Like so. Just great. Okay. And we have to just do this and scale it a little bit back. You don't want to have them too much overlapping in the factory. What do we have? Well, it's not bad. Maybe a bit more inside. Shift D. Ooh, I don't like to do that in the object mode. As Y, bring them back together. As Y. So this one is challenging as well. It's overlapping. So what I will do is just move this one to the left. Sometimes you don't get away with it. So far, so good. So, Shift D will be right there. Shift D like this, and one more. And you won't see this beam, but you will see the other ones, and therefore we go to UV editing, select everything, and just move them to another area. I know repeating textures always break the scene, so just move that upwards. That will be enough. All right, so we finished the pillars. Yeah, I just wanted to just move this to the left, but I cannot see my merge icon, so I go to modeling. That's better. That's kind of weird. Looks like a Blender bug. Yeah, go to render mode, and pretty nice. We'll probably change a little bit of the color of the construction beam, but yeah, it works now pretty well. So we're ending this lecture, and in the next one we take care of the lighting. So we're importing a light prop. We're not going to model that. That's part of the course, a light armature and all the connections with the beams. We're adding a separated light system, area lights. It will be fun. It's in fact the same as we did in part 2, but then on a larger scale. So, but look at that. With the construction beams and the metal beams, it starts to look like a scene. But we're not there yet. We're not even close. We're going to make it look epic. And glad you're still here. Let's make something nice out of it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next part. You don't want to push them to the wall, so a little bit of space is needed. And instead of just duplicating them all over again, we're going to use an array. So we go to the Modify tab, Add Modifier, Generate, and you see array. And there's also array legacy, and you maybe ask yourself, why are there 2 types of arrays? Well, Blender 5 now comes with an array that uses geometry nodes, and you have way more functionality on this. And we will use that on the light lamps, not on these trays, to add some randomization on it. So we start with this, and if we zoom in, you can see what's happening. It's duplicating it 2 times. So you have, in fact, you have 3 light trays on the x-axis. So make this 0 and start with 1. So now they are close to each other. And I like to have a count of 10. And you can see there's more space right here. So I like to GY drag this a little bit. So let's go to the side and drag them more upwards. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit more GY. I'm counting the blender grids. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little. That's really hard to see, but in fact, it doesn't really matter. So we have 1 light row, and now we have to find the distance. So I'm pressing, let's go to the front view. It's a lot of switching between modes. Front view, right view, top view. That's hard to see. We're pressing G key and Z and drag this downwards. Now we go inside. Oh, it's really hard. And press, so I want to have this in the middle of this beam, something like this. That feels good. All right, so far so good. We go to the next object, this part. We're going to hang them. And what we'll do is duplicate it. I'm putting it right here to start with. And then we're going to put this upwards. I thought it was inside, but we have to drag this right here. So here we go. So you don't want it to pop out. This is good, and we're using an array for this part as well. So go to Add Modifier, Generate Array, make this 0, and I want to have a count of 8 for this one, and we're going to increase the Y like this. So it's going to the end. So this yellow line is the end. And we'd like to use something that looks like this. Okay. But they're now floating in the air. So we go into the original one. We're selecting this. And Z key. And we're going to merge this with the beam. And now we have this. It starts to look like something. So there's one more essential part, and that's the light itself, or the lamp. So we're dragging this right here. And let's start at this position. It's really hard to see, so we have to do some moving. Oh, that's the wrong part. We want the lamp. Shift D. My mistake. I'm sorry. All right, so here we go. We direct this upwards. GZ. Just attach this on the light tray, something like this. Okay. Needs to be in the middle. A little bit of tweaking. And we're going to use an array for this one as well. Make this 0. And I'd like to use a count of 7. And we're going to increase this. So, to me, this looks good. How does it look like in the viewport? Okay, just checking everything if it's not looking weird or odd. So this one is overlapping, so we just move this a little bit backwards. I like to check the start. Okay. So, as mentioned, we have the array. This is a new array using geometry nodes. Click randomize. And you have this tab rotation. If I move this, you can see they start to rotate a little. I kind of like this effect because you add some randomization so they're not looking straight. It's a very subtle effect, but I kind of like it. You can do this with like anything. If you have books or other things, you just randomize them and it looks so more natural. Okay, so we have them all aligned. So now we go to a light area. And we go to add light area. Okay. And we're moving this light over here. And instead of using a square, I'm using a rectangle, making it smaller, like this, a little bit taller, GY. Let's take a look where it is. Moving it upwards, G and the Z key, close to each other. So you maybe think, why not using an emission? Well, by default, there is an emission, but I want to have more impact on the scene. This scene can generate quite a lot of noise, and by adding some area lights, we avoid noise. We still have noise, but less. So I don't want to do Shift D because I want to have one value to change to impact them all. So instead, we do Alt D, GY, and Alt D. Just, you can use Control or just move them naturally. That's fine. Alt D, like this, and Alt D. We're almost there. And again, how does it look like? Looks all good to me. So what's left is we're selecting all the area lights, the light armatures, the light ceiling, or what is it? It's called the seal light tray, and the hanging system. And we press Alt G again, G, X, move them to the right. Again, Alt D, and Alt D. All right, perfect. And we have lights in the scene. So how does this look like? We go for a render. So it's rendering, and the great thing is use Alt-D. If we select one light, and for example, we make this 1, all the lights are dimmed. If we make this 20, so the impact, the power, is very bright. So I like the default value of 10, and we're going to use a little of yellowish color. Something like this. So it has a warm tint. Sunlight is more white, and the lamps are more warm. All right, so long story short, so everything looks good. What I'd like to do now is also put some lights here on the beams over there. So I like to simply duplicate it, get rid of the array, and we're going to put these lights over here like this. And align them a little bit. How does it look? Yeah, it's not really visible, so here should be, there you go. And 2 more on the, let's put them right here, so we can just press Alt-D, put them right here. Yeah, it's barely visible, but what we will do is also use this area light. It's selected, I hope so. Yeah, Alt-D, putting it right there. We have to put this in position, otherwise it's not effective. And we're simply duplicate it on all the lights. Like this. Alt-D. Cool. Very well. So at this point, we fixed the lighting, or we added the light. The only thing we need to do from this point, and we will do this in another part, that's not essential for now, is adding HDRI lighting. And because now we're using a more procedural sky, pretam, and a sunlight. Yeah, I want to have the most realistic light available, and you can achieve that by adding an HDRI. So, so far, so good for the lighting. We're going to wrap this part up because it's finished. They're all hanging, and that's nice. So what I'd like to do in the next part is focusing on the doors. That's quite a lot of modeling. There's a large door with a gliding system and the smaller doors. And they all have quite a lot of parts. So we need to take some time to make that work. So thanks for watching this part, and I'd like to see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Number 8. Behind me you can see a blue door, and this is what we're going to model in this part. The door also has a gliding system. It's a bit more complex to model, but we're doing this as well. And we also have a smaller door with some protected glass, using a middle modifier to make the front and the rear of the door. And that's pretty much it for this part. So let's do some door modeling. And welcome to part 8 of the factory construction. In the previous part, we worked on the light system in the factory. So we have these light trays, the light armatures, and the area lights. We can control these in the light settings to have more or less light intensity. So what I like to do in this part is modeling the big door and the smaller doors. So 2 objects. But they're detailed, they have textures, so we'll take some time. We will do it all in one in this part, so let's get started. What we'll do to be organized is go to Building, New, and call this Doors. And I also have some blueprints, and instead of making a new collection with the doors and they are interfering and just putting them in the blueprints. I can see some floating objects. We're not using them anymore, so we delete it. So here we go. So go to the front view, enable the screencast. It's enabled, but just doing nothing. And what we'll do is we go to add, we have the image, reference, and doors. So we have two images, one over here, another one that helps understanding how they work. So we will start with the large door, then we jump to the smaller. So this system is a sort of a gliding system. And I like to make that because we can learn some more advanced modeling. It's not really advanced, but I mean, it's just a step further as what we've been so far. So I like to start with modeling the door. So how that works is add, mesh, and start with adding a cube. Yeah, and we're aligning this with the reference. It's just a square size door. So, and press point, it's now centered. As Y, make it smaller. You don't want a very thick door. GY. Something like this will work. We're adding two edge lines. As X, so move them to the left and right. And two more as Z, like this. And one edge line in the middle, and press Ctrl B. Gently. So what we can do now is selecting the face in face selection mode. Control left click, Control left click, Control left click, Shift left click. There we go. And we extrude this a little bit. Just like this. Perfect. So the door is pretty thick, but that's all right. And I like to add a texture. So we go to the Material tab. What we will do is use the beam metal. We click on 18 and beam and door _ blue. So the only thing we need to change now is the orange to blue. And that's it. So the roughness is the same, the normal is the same. And we're going to let's check the scaling. Item, Control A, rotation and scale. And cube projection, UV editing. And the best way of mapping this, and maybe I want to just isolate these, Shift H, so we have like all the space without having any distraction. I want to start with these two. And yeah, we're going to just align them right there. So this is a very multifunctional texture, and maybe it looks like it's getting repetitive because we're using it over and over again. But in reality, you won't really see it, and they also have a different color. We'll just select these, and just putting it right there. Perfect. So what's left is these two faces. And I want to put one right here in the middle without touching these bars. And the other one, let's go to View and Repeat Image. That looks weird. Oh, it's freezing, looks like. So Blender was freezing, I had to reboot. I'm doing it again, repeat, and just close this, and it looks like it's working back again. You have to report this. It was kind of weird. It looks like when you open the view, it's kind of freeze what you're doing. That's, I think, incorrect. Anyway, we can now close repeat image. I couldn't see what kind of image I had when we just went over it, so that's why I duplicate image. Let's take a look what we have. This is the door, and it's not bad. So I like to just continue because we have quite a lot of modeling to go. We're going to create this other part for the gliding system. So add cube, just because the center is here, we always have to drag this cube. And here we go. We can see something is wrong here at the bottom. I didn't fix these. Same for, I guess, this row. So I have to align this. I'm sorry. I could see a mistake I made restoring that. So here we go. It's not a lot of work. Control L. There we go. And how does it look? Way better. I'm sorry for this. We're scaling this cube like this. Go to the vertice selection mode. We're trying to put it right there. Like so. Extrude this. And then we extrude this all over the other side. So now we have this part, GY, like so. And we want to put something on top for the gliding. So check the scaling. That's not good. Control A, rotation, just scaling. An edge line, and press Control B. Yes. Left click. Control left click. And we extrude. So far so good. Shift left click, Control L, link the material, and we're making this unique door border. We're going to the shading and we select this white. And we have to fix the texture. So pressing U and Q projection. We have to do this all like in once because I don't like it if I have all gray models. And we have to do all the texturing afterwards. That's a lot of work. So, I just drag and drop this where I want it. Don't make it too hard for yourself. Like just this. And I just want to preview it. Looks solid. So now I think the most challenging part, this piece. You can see it's just going over and over. So how that works is we add another cube. And the cube is right there. For a second, my screen wasn't full screen. I had to fix that. That happens when my PC was freezing or the Blender was just doing something weird. GUI, that's when you work in a beta version. Can always happen. Weird things start to happen. Okay, so what we need to do is we're scaling this. Or we're dragging this, we're not scaling the vertices to the top. I want to go to the side view. And we need to put the cursor, shift right click at this point, right here. So what happens is what we can do, we can rotate it all over these the cursor. So shift right click, maybe this is a better position. Let's just take a look how that works. We have this spin and you can define how you want to spin it. So if you do this right way, nothing happens. So no, and the X, there we have it. Okay, holding Control, so it's snapping. And this works. So you have to spin this on the X-axis. And we have to do this again I feel comfortable with doing that. Shift, right click a little bit more to the right. And in X, you simply drag this, holding Control. It's on the other side, and that's it. We stop spinning and we extruding this to the bottom. Something like this. And I like to select these two parts, like here. Well, in fact, I also want these. And move these to the left. So we can have a wheel over here. So now we're going to model the wheel. Okay, so we have this part. And we go to Add, Mesh, Cylinder. And we go to the side view. Where is it? There it is. We rotate it, holding Control. We make it smaller. Front view, it's all the way there. So let's move this to this part. Making it smaller, a little bit bigger. Like so. Then we're trying to find the right measurement as Y. Okay. So I want to add a hole in it, so it's going to glide. So we will do this with a mirror modifier. So we go to modifiers, generate. Where's the mirror? There we have it. There we have it on the Z-axis. So we have to select the rear. We pressing I, and the same time and checking, and the scaling is wrong. So I want to return this action and do it again. Control Z was too fast. Control A, scale. We press I again. And then we extrude. It's going inside. I don't want that, so I'm doing the clipping. And Y, and putting it back to each other. And we can move the top part a little bit more outwards. And then we move this on top of this. And you can see we have a hole inside. So what you do is Alt left click, pressing I, and I again, G, Y, and scale it. So we do it again, Control Z, back again. So from the front, you can press I, or in the wireframe, Control Z, I, and we do I again. Oh, now I'm doing something weird. We extrude, and we scale this. Something went wrong, I don't know. But this is working, so we lift it a little bit. Or what we can do is just lower. Just have to click that. I know what's happening. I have to say, as soon as I open a tab, and this is definitely a Blender bug, the viewport freezes. That's why I was just doing weird things with this. So we should just do this again. That's fine. It's just a learning curve. So I hit I, we have this, then we press E and press S. So we have like this hole inside, maybe scaling it a little bit, add a little bit of depth. And now we're just moving this a bit upwards. And I'd like to lower this like so. Great. Can we just move this a little bit more to the side? So, this is our gliding system. And because it's a mirror, it's looking the same on the other side. We click apply. And I also want to have an extra edge line. So maybe move it a little bit upwards, and you will see in a second why. We're going to add a material, and this is called door border. So we're going to use door border, doing the UV mapping, U, Q projection, Control A, scale. That will result in a different map. Scaling is so important. I have to repeat myself over and over again. So if we take a look, it's now white. And I want to make this bottom part blue. So we add another material and door blue, and we assign like this. And this wheel will be white as well. So shift left click on this part, Control L, link the material. Yeah, do the box projection, cube projection, rotation and scale or scaling. That's fine. Speeding up a little bit because we have to make another door as well. But pretty good. So shift left click, shift D, and we're putting it to the right. And I'll select these two pieces, go to the side view, or more in the perspective, G, Y, move them a little bit more so they are like pushed against the door. Same for these, G, Y. So sort of bending. Okay, from a distance, it will just shine. So that's the first door. Now I want to focus on the other one. So this door is smaller, but a bit more complex to model, and we also have to take more time to add the material and the texture work. But let's get started. We go to add, mesh, and cube. We drag the cube. This is a door. And we align this with the shape of the door, scaling this all the way up, like this. It's very thick. I want to make this thin, S-Y, like so, way thinner than a real door, and using a mirror modifier. Mirror. Okay, we have to check where the other side is, and there it is, and just merge this. All right. So all the changes I make will be appear on the rear as well, like a real door. So how are we going to approach this? So this door has a large window and some little holes down there and something to open the door. So Control A and scale. We start adding the first edge line. Let's go to the modeling tab, like this. And I'm going to just enable that again. And another edge line, like this. What's useful? Like, do it this way. So, another edge line. Here we go. Okay. And I'm doing exactly the wrong thing. So just, we're doing this different. 2 edge lines and putting them right there. And there's one more on top. I'm sorry. Just thinking what the best way to do. So we have this door and we go to the face selection mode. Just double check the scaling. Yeah. And we press I, like this. Maybe a little more than the blueprint. And extrude this inside. Okay. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah, that's the other side. That's fine. And I want to select these and extrude them. So, starts to look like a door. But then we have these, these holes. So we're adding extra edge line, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this. And edge selection, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go to the front view, press Ctrl B. Like this. Then we select in face selection mode, shift left click. And we extrude them inside. And now I want to scale them a little bit to the inside. But if I do that, it looks weird. So we have this individual origins. And you can now do this as Z. Not too much. Okay, so and turn this back to bounding box center. Otherwise, you will have problems later on. So this is a very rough shape of the door. It looks exactly the same on the rear. So far, so good. I'd like to continue with the modeling. Add mesh cube. Where is my cube? There it is. And we're scaling it. And this is like an easy part. We're dragging this right here. We can add a bevel later. Now something to open the door and handle the door handle. Scaling it up. And I like to just, before we continue, select all my parts and right mouse click, move to collection, building, doors. So now they're all in the right collection. Otherwise they're just floating around, will be messy. So we have this cube, will be the door handle. So how are we going to do that? Well, this is the perspective. So it will be this shape. We can replicate that. So we now have this cube, Control A, scale. And just move this a bit outwards. Face selection mode, E. Pressing this one, extrude. Like this. And you can make it smaller. Not too much. We can select these two. And these two edges, we have something like this. That starts to look like a door handle. So it's a little bit of shaping. You can do this in like all kind of ways, maybe a little bit thicker. But yeah, it feels like pretty good. I like to select these, make it a bit smaller, maybe a little bit more outwards, so you can really grab this handle. Maybe one in the middle, that will do. Move him, double tap G, a little bit smaller. Okay. Like I try to add a little bit of curve inside of it. I don't want to ruin this.